Welcome. Happy Holy Day, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science. An awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, we are pleased to present to you once again our illustrious National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey.
So, one of the things that I recognize when you're talking to people around the country and they're looking at the social, political, and particularly the economic problems that we suffer from, one of the things that is very important is for us to understand the current politics, and that the current politics aren't operating in a vacuum. As an example, people are under the general impression that the undercover civil war taking place between Donald Trump, his administration, certain military operatives that are behind him, who actually put him in position for restoration of the republic as one of their goals. And the opposing, as they say, operatives, referred to as the deep state, led by the Ku Klux Klan party, which is known as the Democratic Party. That's where the Ku Klux Klan operates, through the Democratic Party. And as a matter of fact, the Democratic Party was set up by the Ku Klux Klan. Now that's not in defense of Donald Trump. It's just to present to you a clearer perspective on the politics, because clearly when you're talking to many of our people in our communities, they'll immediately jump on Donald Trump, following the party line, not understanding that he's not necessarily operating in their disinterest. And that the people they've trusted is actually the people who've been operating not in their interest, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And again, like I said, I'm not defending Donald Trump, I'm just talking about the politics, because both of them are arguing over spoils of the Moroccan Empire. So, and both of them are arguing over and competing for the resources that belong to the Aboriginal people of the land, specifically Moors of Northwest Territories, North America, Central America, and South America. One of the things that the European practices that our people need to understand is called projection. And projection is where, from a political perspective, the deliberated art of, as an example, and it's not unlike what is often used by the priesthood for generations to cover up their corruption. The priesthood uses the devil as a scapegoat, and that's called projection, meaning that all the corruption that the priesthood have been doing for generations, they constantly point to the mystical devil to keep the people's minds off the fact that the priesthood is corrupt, and that many of the evils on the planet have actually been generated by the priesthood. That's called projection. In the political realm, what has taken root, particularly at North America, by European colonists who have been occupying North America, is artfully and deliberate projection. Another example would be what you hear about in contemporary history, the Boston Tea Party. And this is where Europeans dressed up like Moors, putting tar on their faces and making their faces dark, and throwing over the teas because of the taxes of Britain, etc., so that the people would think that it was the Aboriginal people that did the attack on the ship. That's called projection. And the Europeans have been using that ever since because it has been successful for them. And they symbolize projection by the internationally famous parade called the Mummers Parade in Philadelphia, where originally they would march in what they call blackface. That's called projection. And then you would see some of your more revered early figures that they call movie stars and actors, etc., at North America with the Europeans. You'll see people like Al Jolson and people in that era where they paint their faces dark. That's called projection. So keep this in mind. Whereas many of the people are looking at history or looking at the current politics in a vacuum, as for now, they're operating on what you call controlled layered knowledge. They deal with what you call past projection, policies, operations with a specific purpose, and that is to maintain hegemony over generations, meaning that the agenda of projection is projected over generations. Another example of projection is the European hybrids referring to themselves as Americans when they're Europeans. Are we clear? And after a while, people don't contest that, not understanding that that has a political agenda. Are we clear? And that agenda is claiming the land, claiming the resources, and claiming authority on the land. Are we clear?
Clear.
The political systems, one of the major political systems that have been working in favor of the hybrids is the Niceno-Constantinian order, which you know today in a projected form as Christianity. All right, so that's projection, meaning that they're projecting what people think Christianity is when actually they're not Christians. They're Constantinians. But their history operations is done in the name of Christianity. That's called projection. Are we clear? Christianity is actually an off-take of the Kabbalistic and historical operations in ancient Sinde. That's later, really over about 2,500 years ago in that area, named Hindustan by the Moors of the Mauryan Nanda-Gupta dynasty. And then in order to hide that history and the evolutionary development of what they're calling modern religions period, which includes Zoroastrianism, which evolves into what you know as Islam, on the creed principle, not the science principle. Are we clear? Judaism, etc., Yahudi, and all of these are actually systems of Gnostic wisdom coming down from the ancient ones. Over periods of time, the different political systems have been infiltrated, and the hybrids have been using them on a projection type operation in order to conquer the world. This is well-known fact amongst all scholars, and particularly religious scholars, etc. Often not spoken of because the priesthood also have among themselves what you call cadre of assassins or murderers. And one of the keys to the priesthood's power has been murder, theft, murder for hire, systematic destruction of literature, suppression of sciences and technologies of the ancient world, etc. And so you see, whenever you do any research into anthropology and human sociology in general, although the subject matter is rarely brought up amongst the scholars for the public, when it is brought up, they will admit that the bishopric of Rome set the world back over 500 years, meaning that they already know that on a conservative note, that humanity on the planet should be 500 years minimally more advanced than we are now, which also indicates that the technologies and the sciences were actually more advanced 500 and 1,000 years ago than is assumed today. So when you know some of the history, when they're finding ancient artifacts that contradict the storyline that has been projected onto the masses, those who know the real history, it doesn't surprise them. Those who don't know the history, they always look at it with amazement, when actually they shouldn't be amazed whatsoever, because even what they're showing you is minimal. Because the fact of the matter is, the Rome has put the world back intellectually and socially over 1,000 years. And this is the foundation upon which the modern politics is run. Are we clear? So to get a little bit of background, I want to make some notes to you, and you can take notes and keep this in mind. While this is not direct subject matter, I'm going to mention some things to you. Kaaba means cube. Cube and Kaaba, that's the geometry of the structure of the building that you see in the holy city of Mecca. And I want to remind you that in one corner of that Kaaba is a meteorite. And that's to remind you all that all of us didn't come from this particular planet, although we are the people of the planet, the Aboriginals. Are we clear? In the other corner is Aunt Hagar's grave. And Aunt Hagar ruled in the Yucatan in ancient Central Africa, or what you call ancient Amexem, which is now called Central America. And when people look at the history and they know of Aunt Hagar, usually their mind goes to Hipkupta on that side of the water that they call Egypt. And their mentality is that there's a disconnect between the North Gate and the East Gate, when there never was. Are we clear? That misinformation is called projection. And European practice is projection to disconnect the heirs who have been conquered from their illustrious history. Are we clear? The politics that you see today are all measured by the past. Are we clear? So when you think that, say, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, who are the collection of four Kaikulus, which is the Ku Klux Klan, White Camellia, Thule Society, Rhodes Scholars, etc., that they are essentially different in some ways that you think that they are. Understand that they're not so different that you think that they are. It is not unlike in the service industry for getting rid of babies that they abort, and to also control the masses, they have what you call fast food outlets that serve the same purpose, to sell, like what they call hamburgers to people, 2 for $1 or 2 for $5. And when you consider the grain and the work that is necessary to raise cattle, etc., and the numbers of fast food places in every city, forget in the States and forget on the broader scale, and the way they move those burgers, that could not possibly be a steady supply. They couldn't grow it fast enough. Are we clear? So hamburgers is really mixed human DNA, what you would call certain roadkill, choice roadkill, not all roadkill, cattle, pork, pigs, what they call feral pigs, that they constantly, they actually have contractors that go out and shoot feral pigs. These are wild pigs, and particularly like in the Texas area. And all of those things together makes up what is called your hamburger, right? Including kangaroos, including horses that are no longer useful, and other livestock, etc. And they use their bones to make what people call Jell-O. And so when people are eating jello, they're just simply eating bones of the animals, all right? Now that's important to understand, also to understand why when they have all these abortion clinics around the country, particularly in North America, that you don't see a lot of burials or ceremonial burials, or you don't see what you call great crematories where the bodies of these babies go, because they go into hamburger. You know, and that's after they take the glands and the blood of the children. Yes, they take the blood of the children, they take glands of the children, and your high-line makeup for wealthy Europeans, and certain elixirs that they use in the name of trying to maintain youth in their bodies and their skin is really what the abortion industry is really for. It's an excuse to harvest human genome and human bodies, we're clear, as well. And so to get rid of the bodies, they just mix it with the hamburger. Now that's the truth. But let's get back down to what is some of the problems that our people are experiencing, say with the poverty in our communities, acts like the Negro Act, Trading with the Enemy Act, King Alfred Plan, Rex 84 Plan, Agenda 21, Eugenics, Sanger Institute, Tavistock Institute in England, etc. All of those operations are all related. They're not separate. And by our people really not knowing the history, they think that these are things that people with less than honorable positions of alleged authority come up with in legislation and do currently, when actually they're carrying out the same policy with different names, just simply going to different generations and different territories. Are we clear? All right, so they're really projecting what is known as the red man. Are we clear? Now, because the red man is a heterogeneous hybrid, the nature of the structure of the body of the heterogeneous hybrid is susceptible to the energy rays of the sun. And so, by the nature of the existence of the Roman, the sun seeks to kill the hybrid. That's just simply the fact, because it is alien to the natural order on the planet. Are we clear? So when people are talking about, melanin and talking about the Asiatic people, very often they're talking from a perspective of trying to build a sense of self-pride because they've been abused by Europeans without necessarily understanding that this is just a fact of nature. Are we clear? Having nothing to do with the politics of the beings that may be tied to it, but it is not the origin. Are we clear? So we're going to go into some of the history and some of the Gnostic wisdom presented in the Septuaginta. And remember, the Septuaginta is actually your first translations into what is known today as the Bible. So when you're looking at Septuaginta, you're looking at the first Bibles. Are we clear? And then when you're looking at the Bibles as they're presented to the people, the Bibles are presented anthropomorphic. However, there is also some dynamics of human development operative on the planet that you need to know about. So we're going to go into some of the motives as to the Europeans' activities today. Are we clear? Now, one of the keys to the Europeans having secret societies and what makes secret societies necessary for Rome is that they must preserve aspects of the true history in order to rule. Are we clear? because there's a body of what you call curriculum that's designed for the masses to keep them in a certain manageable state that has nothing to do with the real history. Are we clear? So essentially, when you're looking at people that get in positions of political power and economic power, and it is a well-known fact that in a word or in a phrase you'll see that they're Masons, then you must understand what that means, if you get the point. Now, just because someone might be a Knight of Columbus, he can still be a Mason, all clear. Now, Masons essentially mother's son and study, are we clear? It is the preservation of the real history, the illustrious history of the human family given in signs, symbols, and allegorical stories. However, for the Gnostics and for those who are in your higher degrees of adept chambers of the world, do not necessarily aspire to allegorical stories, but pretty much tell you bluntly what the truth is. Are we clear? Now, a synopsis of the Roman or Red Man is registered in the Library of Congress, which is the world's largest library, and is generally dispensed to people under certification that must go through a system of registering, not so much registering, but sending into the Copyright Office of the Library of Congress, and then they would issue 3 certificates that many of you have heard from periods here and there of C.M. Bay, Charles Mosley Bay, PhD, 3rd, 33, 33rd, 306 degree, Free Moorish Master Mason, Constitution Lawgiver. Now, a lot of people over the periods of years have been essentially who should have been helping to raise our people, that is R-A-I-S-E, have been preoccupied raising them, and that's R-A-Z-E. And so one of the things that we have been doing through Moore's Order Roundtable over the years, and we're doing here now at the House of Reawakening Minds, is sharing a lot of information that generally is held back from the masses. Are we clear? Because really, the issue of birthright and estate belong to all of the people. It doesn't belong just to someone because they belong to some secret society and pay thousands of notes and take death oaths to men who they have placed above themselves as gods. Are we clear? Which is pretty much how this thing operates. Are we clear? And they protect the orders by murder, theft, and wars. All your wars that take place on the planet are actually contrived. None of them were naturally generated by the people, other than, corner fist fight or stuff like that. All of your major wars come from your secret societies, who come from directives of the Thule Society, Rhodes Scholars, Knights of Columbus, ETC, Knights Templars, Knights of Malta, on up to the Rhodes Scholars operating with the P2 Masons, the Vatican Order of Opus Dei and Illuminati, etc., all of whom are connected. Are we clear?
Is a lot of that still under the IMF?
IMF is essentially a United States corporation company operated under controlled from Fleet Street, England, answering to the Bishopric of Rome and to the Pope of Rome. It is still the same operation. So what you have a layer of hierarchy.
Okay.
When you get into the communities, then you have your different Masonic orders. Eastern Stars, Daughters of the American Revolution, Templars, etc. And of course, when you know the history, there were some issues that took place in around 1300s with the Popes of Rome and the Knights Templars. And so as a reminder, while we're not getting into that as a subject matter, that Donald Trump is a Templar. So while it's interesting, it's also not surprising while there is some how do you say, irritating sandpaper relationship between Donald Trump and many of your Masons who are operatives under the Circle Church of the Chancery. But I'm saying that to say to you, in general, that most people's view of Donald Trump is incorrect if they're following the mainstream. It's not a defense of him, but he's not who they think that he is. Even though, again, like I remind you, they're all still fighting over your resources. Are we clear? You're still under Roman occupation. And you must never forget that. Are we clear?
And what resources do you mean? Oh,
The land.
okay.
One of the major ones for the average person, because a lot of people, it's difficult for them to accept and understand this because they're under the idea for generations that they're spiritual and they have special relationships with gods. And so they have a sense of self-righteousness and confidence and security that really doesn't exist with them, but it makes them feel good. But for people who really want to begin to liberate humanity, you just got to tell the truth for what it is. You know, the deal of it is with the common person, if you would kind of give them something to hold on to understand, the Inquisition Revenue Services, which is the IRS, is harvesting their labor under the guise of being government, which is projection, which means they're not government. They are a military arm of the Chancery on Fleet Street, England, answering to the Pope of Rome.
Corporation.
In other words, it's tithing by force. And this is pretty much how they have maintained their economic base.
Tithing by force sound like taxes.
So when you're talking resources, the average person keeps thinking dirt, gold, silver, the minerals of the earth, the waters, etc. It never dawns on them that they are equal to the land. And they are the number one resource, human capital. Yeah. So when you're getting into this knowledge, you know, you got to get the people to reconnect with what is really their estate. So anyway, let's go a little bit through the history of Yakub Cushitis. You can dim that light. Now, knowledge is power. Being without it is most detrimental to oneself. Wisdom is the creator herself. Wisdom is the creator herself. And those who despise wisdom and instruction are fools. Knowledge is that state or fact of knowing. And this is where traditionally you get the category of what they refer to as Gnostics. Are we clear? And is associated with familiarity, awareness, cognizance, or understanding, which is gained through experience or study. Knowledge also relates to that sum or range of information and experience which has been perceived, learned, or discovered via learning and erudition. The intuitive apprehension of spiritual truths, being that which relates to the esoteric knowledge, is called gnosis. And those who acquire the same or who study the same are called Gnostics. Are we clear? The secret societies exist to develop Gnostics. Are we clear? So when people are in politics or in the clergy or in the medical industry or in your high-ranking military operations, to the average person, these people have different categories of operations. However, amongst themselves, they know that they're all Gnostics. Are we clear? The different titles are often given to confuse the masses when their goal is the one. Are we clear? The idea that people think that their agendas are separate because the categories of their operations appear separate, is by design diversion and projection. Are we clear? At any time, persons who are held to any what you call meaningful degree in the secret societies can be placed in other positions of operation of government at any time and be qualified. Because most of the things that are done in the name of government is absolute BS. The whole relationship of most governments is parasitic altogether. Are we clear? That includes the priesthood and all the rest of them. This is why when problems arise in society, you don't see none of them going to jail. In general. They may sacrifice one here or there. That's why you don't see, because it's really a network. Are we clear? And this is why you'll see also people in the communities call themselves the clergy who will condemn masonry in the general public, while in secret they are themselves Masons and Eastern Stars. Are we clear? Now the masses have their idea of what they think things are. But even if they understood much of what they saw or read in Septuaginta, which is previous or supersedes the Bible, and then the Bibles are coming from Septuaginta. Are we clear? So we'll just share some of the things where they actually expose themselves, but they know that you don't relate it to them. Are we clear? Are we clear?
Clear.
All right. Septuagint, Proverbs 1:7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and there is good understanding to all that practice it, and piety toward God is the beginning of discernment. But the ungodly will set at naught wisdom and instruction. Now, problem. What God are you talking about? Because it's generic. So keep that in mind. All right? And understand when people go into any of your Gnostic orders, they are told that from the door. Are we clear? So on the surface, this is left for the masses. But underneath, it breaks down to another level to those who rule. Are we clear? Because they're actually dealing with competing men in positions of power who all declare themselves God. Are we clear? Who are competing for rulership over the people. Are we clear? And then other entities that they relate to. On earth and off earth. Are we clear? And it has always been that way. Are we clear? So once you understand that much, you can begin to liberate your mind and look at things more realistically. Are we clear? Roll it. Now, the Holy Bible, Proverbs 1:7, and this would be derivative from Septuaginta. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Scroll up. Furthermore, one should aspire to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding. Septuaginta, Proverbs 1:2. To know wisdom and instruction and to perceive the words of understanding. Holy Bible 1:2. To know wisdom and instruction to perceive the words of understanding. With these thoughts, bear in mind that the history of the Moorish nation and all of its related subjects have not been taught since 1863. Now, 1863 is the Knights of Columbus Ku Klux Klan oath in Chicago, Illinois. And then you're looking at 1853 and 1854, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where they had convention with the Knights of Columbus Ku Klux Klan. And this is also why there's a moment's parade there. Are we clear? So the system of the operations of the orders of the secret societies is and was and is to suppress ancient Moabite Moorish history. Are we clear? This is why all your secret societies wear the Moorish fez. It is not theirs. That crown of the sun belongs to you. Are we clear? You are the great Masonic secret. The people, in general, who are under the illusion that human beings are crayons, green people, light skin, orange skin, purple people, it doesn't matter what color you are type thing. That mentality shows you that they're what is called hieroglyphic, buried in the dark north. They don't know themselves, their bloodline, whatever. Are we clear? So they're the descendants of the great architects of the planet and civilization, direct descendants and the ones who least know about it. And so Masonry, as a rule in general, is to keep them in a clandestine position, even when they find out a little bit. Are we clear? And this is the source of your economic and political problems, your family problems, and all the things that you think that's happening between you and your mates is actually being projected actually from the dark priesthood from all angles. In other words, you're under attack. Are we clear? Clear. Now, the deal of it is understanding that you're under attack. That's the problem. So this is again why we're going into some of your ancient history. Now, so you have to excuse me a little bit because I'm a little sniffle, so I'm just getting over some of the chemtrail. Yeah. So with these thoughts, bear in mind that the history of the Moorish nation and all of its related subjects have not been taught since 1863. Understand that this fundamental principle of knowledge of social operations is known by Europeans in North America. This is where many of them develop their superior attitude to you because they know that you don't know your own bloodline or history. And just by them knowing that gives them the upper hand on you, even if they're the dumbest dummies. Are we clear? This is also why you can see the most many intelligent people on our side who may be running some kind of business or working in some kind of industry, and they'll have a European son or daughter that's pretty much high school education and don't even have that and acts essentially like an asshole, and they'll have you train them for a position and then they become your boss on your job. That's why this is done. Are we clear? So if you don't know the history, you may have in your mind that they're racist and prejudiced because this is what they throw out to you. No, it's the hegemony operations. Are we clear? And it is to preserve the hegemony of the Roman Empire by projection. And the deal of it is the projection is for someone to operate as one thing when they're really operating as another. Are we clear? I.e. mummers or pretense, that's mockery. So don't get caught up in what you assume to be. Know the motive of your enemy, and you can read them left and right. Are we clear? Clear. But also understand that even when they're smiling, they're attacking you. Yes. Are we clear? Clear. It doesn't mean that you should be hating them, so that's not what we're presenting to you. We're presenting to you the reality of the politics that you're suffering. Now, in your greater mind and in the depths of your thinking, it is incumbent upon you to turn your hearts back to your ancient mothers and fathers and begin to activate the memory in your DNA so that you can start solving problems. All right? It will not be solved in the sense that most people think in hot fire, though hot fire takes place around the planet. It will be done in a manner that cannot immediately be expressed in words. It has to be an evolutionary development within you to higher planes of thought. Are we clear? To start dumping belief systems and start dealing with reality. And then start dumping your fears also so that you can see through the layers of projection that they are trained to place in front of you every day. For that illusion, that's what's called in the Bible the illusions of the world. Are we clear? The projections. Are we clear? Now, so the Moorish nation has been eliminated from public libraries and from the curriculum of all institutions of higher learning, from high schools, from colleges, and from universities of the USA and abroad, of the white society. And the white society is a tag that they took on themselves in 1854 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, under the Whittemore Party, when the Republican Party was set up, are we clear, by Horace Greeley, who was a New York newspaper tycoon, are we clear? So remember that that's a title of nobility. That is not who they are we clear? So when you make reference to white society, that's a tag that they took on to themselves that actually don't belong to them. Are we clear? It's called projection. Are we clear?
Clear.
And identity theft.
Yes.
Yes. So, and unfortunately, the white society has educated the Negroes to believe that their forefathers were brought from Africa to the USA as Negro slave. That's projection. Are we clear? Negro actually is a chimpanzee. Are we clear?
Clear.
Not only that, was used in the hybrid experiments in the Yucatan, and the European is actually the Negro. That's called projection. So the layers of projection has actually put the world into darkness. So when you seek to solve things and you start projecting these words, you're actually empowering them. Because you don't know it's projection. Are we clear? So whenever you use those phrases and words, qualify it, and that way it takes the sting, the karmic sting plant seed out of it. So you have to learn to reverse what the Roman dark priesthood has done by also the use of words too, because the word is God. So Negroes, they cause Negroes, persons who think they're Negroes, to believe that their forefathers were brought from Africa to the USA as Negro slaves. That's projection too, because the USA is actually a political system and not the continent. But the people's mind is that USA is America. You see? Not knowing that it's a state of mind that they moved you in. Because you're standing on Africa. Are we clear? All right. Now, this is the biggest white lie that the world has ever known, and is the basic reason why whenever truth appears among quote-unquote blacks, the majority of them will flee from it, laden with fear, jealousy, hatred, and violence. For you see, the blacks of North America believe that they have been told the truth all along, but they haven't. And so when the truth appears, they act negatively toward it. As a matter of fact, they will not believe anything unless it comes out of the white man's mouth, the white man's educational instructions, or from his formal publications. This is all a result of the lack of knowledge of truth. Paradoxically, though, this great truth is the great body that will make them free. Again, referencing the Christian Bible in which the blacks believe, St. Paul says, "Prove all things, hold fast to that which is good. The following evidence shall be proof of the good toward which Negroes should hold fast." And understand that's projection, so you reverse that projection. All clear? At this point, you are advised to endeavor to govern your emotions with an open mind. The origin of the name Negro is the basic reason why blacks have been both feared and hated so badly by the pale-skinned people of the white society in the USA. And so that's the political jurisdiction that was set up. Are we clear? Directed at a geographical location, but not the geographical location itself. Projection. We are aware that the category of astrology, global geography, and the history of the Moorish nation will conflict with 9 out of every 10 persons of the USA, especially those often referred to as Negroes. They're referred to as Negroes, but they're not. Are we clear? Keep in mind projection. That's why I qualified it. Because when these lessons are sent to you from the Library of Congress on the certification, they're presented in the connotative, general, partial connotative presentment that people are used to hearing. But the projection must be told to you before you read this so that you don't fall under the spell. Are we clear? All right. So we're aware that the category of astrology, global geography, and the history of the Moorish nation will conflict with 9 out of every 10 persons of the USA, especially those often referred to as Negroes, owing to their Christian education, projection. The Christian education is really a Constantinian education. Are we clear? So this is why these things, now if, like say for instance, if the master mason or lawgiver wrote the same things to you without the projection, most of our people wouldn't understand it. Are we clear? So if you say to these people they're Constantinian education, you just lock them out because they don't know that they're under projection. Because they don't know that. Are we clear? So that's why I opened up with the knowledge of projection and its use. Are we clear? This is so that you can learn to read things properly. This is again how they can put things in your face and still hide. Are we clear? All right. They have been too deeply instilled with emotional religious doctrines, dogmata. The religious doctrines that they have is really dogmata. All right? And distorted history as written by prejudiced European American educators. During the last 100 years, the group emotionally refer or relies upon that which they have been taught to believe. Facts and testimony is not the foundation of their faith except in rare cases. These people accept without question the beliefs of those among them whom they are born and reared, and will scroll up. Thank you. Thank you. Disbelieve even the evidence of their own senses rather than abandon the impractical emotional beliefs which have grown in them. Today, religious worshippers have proven to the entire world that they would rather resort to emotional human hatred and fight, suffer, and die over the names of the mythical God and religion than to reasonably agree with simplified and applied truth. While reading these notes, you are advised to endeavor to be guided by common sound reasoning rather than by emotions, which are the result of your traditional beliefs in the doctrines of religion. The doctrines of religion are generally the doctrines of dogma, all right? And that is a control mechanism of the priesthood. We are aware of the fact that the illustration of the science of the 12 signs of the zodiac, the history of the Moabite Moorish nation, and the history of the Franciscan Anglo-Saxon nations are confusing to the reader owing to limited education of the majority of the masses. Nevertheless, the true history is that the Moorish nation rose out of the corruption of the Moabite nation. That's very important. Are we clear? The Moorish nation rose out of the corruption of the Moabite nation. Are we clear? Now, keep in mind Aunt Hagar. Are we clear? All right. So the Moabite nation of this hemisphere over 1,371 years ago, calculated from 1951. So 1371, calculated back from 1951. The Franciscan nations rose out of the corruption of the Moorish nation of this hemisphere in 1863, the era of the Union. The only true history during the past 1,300 years is that of the Moorish nation. You see? That's what your relationship is with the Europeans, and this is why so much effort is put to keep you dumb. Because the Franciscan order rose out of your corruption and your fall. That's what the Mother's Parade is in Philadelphia. That's what's referred to by historians as the theft of the nationality and the birthright of the Moorish Americans. Are we clear? For what is called the Great Seal Order of the fall of the Moorish nation, also referred to in the ritual of Hiram Abiff, the great architect buried in the dark north of his own house. Are we clear? And this is where you see symbolically in Philadelphia, when you go into #1 North Broad Street, the Masonic Lodge, where you see George Washington closing the lodge, and he goes, whoa. He goes, whoa, because they discovered that Hiram ain't dead. Also, that he still has the keys. They thought they got all of the secrets, they still don't. That's why they kill you off earlier. Not all of you. Do you understand? Not that that wasn't their intention. Are we clear? And so this is where you have the symbolism of the ruffians, jubilo, jubilum, where they strike him in the head, leave him for dead. And also symbolic of the tribe of Judah, or the lion in Wizard of Oz. Then you have the straw man, represented the closing of the Freedmen's Bureau, 1868, and the conversion of a person to their private corporation. Then the rusty tin man, representing the cribbing of all industry and the stagnation of your economy. All this is symbolic. The yellow brick road is your zodiac constitution. Emerald City is your green star. You see? Mm-hmm. All right. Once you understand these things, you understand the politics of the day. So, in the year 49,000 ancient Moabite. So when you see AM, you be thinking morning. Mm-hmm. What they tell you actually is ancient Moabite. Are we clear? You talk about eras, dynasties. Are we clear? So when you understand that people in power don't look at the time cycles the way you do, you're training by them. Once you start learning your ancient Moabite Moorish history, you will be able to read them because now you know how they think. And also why they play dumb with you. Are we clear? When you start using your common sense, and you be wondering how they're running everything because the control is over your estate. Give Sister Mike. Excuse me.
AM is normally means anti-meridian, which is a part of time. But what does that mean? You said it's not really AM?
The way it's presented to you in time now by the sun clock, the sun and the moon clock, because we use sun cycle and the moon cycle for most of our calendars. But in reality, we use sun, moon, and Venus. And then when you go back further, we actually use 19 different planets because the civilization wasn't limited to one planet. And so as you go into different planetary structures, you would deal with different time cycles. And so even the watch systems were actually multiple layered. And so this is why a lot of times when you're looking into ancient artifacts, that's hard for people to understand because they're thinking only from Earth planet. So when you're dealing with Earth planet, you're dealing with what the sun and the moon cycles to deal with the chronology. But actually, it maintained in ancient Moabite culture, we deal with time by cycle ages. And so you have to know that in order to understand the politics, are we clear? And understand what gives people in position of authority power over you, because they know this and they know that it's your culture, but they know that you don't know that. And they know that people who've been teaching you or ruling you aren't going to tell you that, because they took blood oaths of death to Rome and having you think they're worshiping the God in heaven when they're really worshiping Rome. Are we clear? That's again why Masonry is an open secret. I mean, it's in your face, but it's hidden but not hidden. Because you don't know the layers. You don't know projection. Are we clear? Once you understand projection, and you know the ancient Moabite history, you can look at the politics and read them all day long. Just like looking at their marked deck through a mirror. Are we clear? And the knowledge of that is your power. Because they can't play you anymore. See, because the deal of it is, with projection, they preoccupy the energy of the projection of your mind with things that are of no worth. And the things that you should be addressing, even though they're in front of you, you're neglecting because you think that they are the things of no worth. Are we clear? And then because you don't know projection, you don't know that you're dealing with layers of operative imposters and identity thieves. And to hide it even further, this is another reason why the dark priesthood put their family names on the descendants of the Moors, so that after a few generations, they would not be aware that their political position is a projection. It's an illusion. Anything that they buy or sell with the mark or the number of that name, that's European property. This is why it's important for them to project that you're secure in the gods that they've given you, that have nothing to do with the gods of your forefathers. You see, it's called projection. And so our people build their lives around their images in their mind of what they think God is, not knowing is generic and multiple. You know. So the Yucatan experiment, so let's finish this first part, so you need to know heterogeneous hybrids. In the year 49,000, ancient Moabite, Yakub produced the red-skinned people heterogeneous hybrids, hybrida, with animalistic experimentation with the crossbreeding of human and anthropoid pongidae. The subjects of that experiment consisted of 12 Moabite women and the Negro, Yavero, Areba, chimpanzee, the manifest of which resulted in the name Negro. That's where it has its origin. Are we clear? That's how the word Negro came into the human family. Are we clear? Prior to that, it had no place in the human family because it's an animal. This is why a lot of times the Europeans will write books and use a chimpanzee and then will tie us to the chimpanzee when it's actually him. That's called projection. Are we clear? And after a few generations of raising the people like that, they think they're Negroes. And so there's automatically a disconnect from the human family. And so they're always seeking the approval of their masters. And one rule they used to say with people in your higher degrees of masonry in different societies, they would say, no gods, no masters. And they hold true to that. They just promote that for the public. That's one of the keys to their power. It's called projection. See, so the people think that they're already secure in their God concepts, and they don't look further back to recognize that the ancient ones did not go around worshiping gods the way these people keep saying that you did. Though that lie concept came from Europeans for control purposes, but the people think it's their culture. This is why we can't liberate the people, because they're under a European spell. You see? He's their God. Even when people start learning truth, you'll start seeing them getting fearful while they're talking about their different gods. They fear Rome. That's their God. That's the key to Rome's power. Are we clear? Projection. All right. Now, the Yacubian experiment is referenced in the Septuagint and in the Bible and reflected in their books of Genesis. Now, keep in mind, Genesis deals with genetics. Are we clear? Genesis, relate that to genetic experimentation. Are we clear? All right. The set hybrida genetics is depicted as a story of the account of the conception and birth of Yaqub and Esau. Septuagint, Genesis 25, 23, 25, 25. And the Lord said to Rebekah, there are two nations in thy womb, And two peoples shall be separated from thy belly, and one people shall excel the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. And the days were fulfilled that she should be delivered, and she had twins in her womb. And the first came out red, hairy, all over, like a skin, and she called his name Esau. And after this came forth his brother, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, and she called his name Jacob. Are we clear? Now Rebecca essentially is referenced in, I think it's 25, and this is where you have the issue of the birthright theft for the bowl of red pottage. All right, yeah. So Bible Genesis 25, 23, 25, 25. And the Lord said unto her, two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of peoples shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red all over, like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. In relationship to the higher sciences applied to self-observation and to analysis, the Moabite masters studied man as a creative being. Their motto was, man, know thyself, and thou wilt know the universe and the gods. That's plural. Man is the microcosm of the macrocosm. He is the epitome of all worlds and all powers. He is the focusing and condensing point of the countless electromagnetic currents which in energizing become what may be called the living conscious vital electricity of incredible voltage, but hardly comparable to the form of electricity known to physicists. This is another reason why they don't tell you the truth about electromagnetism and what you call free energy, because you're walking energy. That's called projection. And this is another way they've been ruling the planet. Are we clear? Keeping you from the knowledge of yourself. Are we clear? The magical creative power is variously symbolized in the Bible, and in one place is mentioned as the bush that burned with fire but was not consumed. That's the burning bush. Meaning it's projection of energy, but it doesn't burn up. But it's you're actually dealing with that nuclear, or what you call that spark, or that monad power, also found in man and in nature, and harnessed in order to run cities. That's what you see symbolically in movies that they show them trying to find this mystical ark, or the Ark of the Covenant, this energy thing in this container that when you open up it kills everybody, but it doesn't consume itself. That is actually what you would call advanced nuclear fusion power that's actually drawn out of the universe itself, or out of the polar energy of the air and the ground itself without lines, what you might also refer to as wireless electric communication. Are we clear? And it's ancient, not modern. Are we clear? Their job or their missionary work, among other things, is to keep that from you, from really understanding when you look at the Bible and its cosmological background, and also some of the things that seem to conflict with what you think your beliefs are. It's so that you do not start looking at these things more realistically, absent of your God concepts, because if you start reading them books absent of your God mystical concepts, they open up a whole different page on the same pages. That's what they don't want to develop in you. Are we clear? Because then you start powering up, because the energy is already in you. Are we clear? And they don't want you to find that out. Some people find it out accidentally and actually thinking they're having some kind of spiritual experience, and it's actually the nature of the being And the only reason it locks down is because of their belief systems. Now, the deal that we're dealing with this, with the operations of Uranus and mainly Uranus and Jupiter, and their alignment in relationship to the spiraling of the sun to the earth is causing so what you call a warp in the operations of the past cycles. And so by not necessarily by people's intention, but just by the Aquarian energy, that these things are being activated. So a lot of confusion that you see is confusion of people not understanding that they're actually evolving in truth. You know, now the real deal, if it wasn't so many lies set forth by the priesthood, humanity could evolve more reasonable with less destruction. But because of a lack of understanding, they'll be doing a lot of destruction at the same time. So when you see a lot of the paradoxes taking place with all your secret societies, which include your alphabet soup, institutions that you think is government, like the IRS, FBI, CIA, etc., NSA, etc., none of these are really original parts of the Republic government. They are really secret societies and secret armies that have been operating to maintain the Roman Empire, etc., on the planet. And the real operations from North America has been because of this being the North Gate, or the heartland of the ancient Moabite Moorish nation. And so you have the energy vortexes that are here that are key to the rulership of the entire planet. That's why the European focuses so much on occupying North America. And they are not Americans. Are we clear? And so when you're looking at the battles going on between Donald Trump and Keikelos, that has origin in this, and they have knowledge of this. Issue is that they know that the masses don't have that knowledge, except Moorish Americans in your added degrees. Are we clear? But all the Europeans and all the Templars, Illuminati, and everybody else has that knowledge. But by the masses among the heirs being asleep to this knowledge, that is the key to their weakness and to Rome ruling. Are we clear? That's another reason why we picked this subject matter for tonight. Are we clear? Because people are looking at Donald Trump and all of the back and forth between Pelosi and all of them. All of that's a dog and pony show for the public. Don't look at what you see is BS. All right? Look behind it. Are we clear? Septuaginta. And an angel of the Lord appeared to him in flaming fire out of the bush, and he sees that the bush burns with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Holy Bible, Exodus 3:2. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. Holy Bible, Acts 7:30. And when 40 years were expired, there appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai an angel of the Lord in a flame of fire in a bush. This powerful force, however, is a double-edged sword that cuts both ways. It exalts or degrades, improves or destroys, depending on the conditions. If activated unnaturally without the power to control, it would give its deadly sting to him in whom it was so unwisely awakened. For example, some people say that this same creative force was unnaturally activated by Yaqub when he created the red man, because Yaqub did not have 100% control over each of his subjects. As a result, the hybrida creation heterogeneous hybrids multiplied beyond any kind of control, leading to the great sting of the Asiatic Moorish nation around the world. The compound negative effects, scroll up, of the same were and are especially evidenced in regard to the so-called blacks in North America. This said destructive recoil and injurious great sting is why some people call Yaqub the devil. Are we clear? You got to know the history to know why certain things were said. Yucatan, land of Judah. That would be Judah. Are we clear? There's no J. It's actually Judah.
That's right.
But it's presented so that you could relate to what you thought you heard. All right? Keep in mind projection. Yucatan is a peninsula geographically located in southeast Mexico and north central America. It comprises, in these days, southeast Mexico, north Guatemala, and Belize. Its spelling may be presented as Yucatan, Yucatan, or Yucuatin. Mexico, or Mexico meaning mixed, is the land of Judah, ancient land of Judah. Ham, Mu, the Cushite, and Chaldean nations, and the Garden of Eden, of which were established by Yaqub, Israel, the last great genius and scientist of the Moabite nation. Also located here is the Great Pyramid University of the original ancient Central Africa. This Pyramid University is 24,000 years old and is the oldest university in the world. Naturally, it was built by the master mason craftsmen of the Moabite nation. It contains the geometry, Latin, algebra, calculus, trigonometry, and calculations of moon, sun, and the 7 planets of the zodiac constitution law of the universe concerning the cycles of the evolution of both man and the universe. Yaqub Israel is called the father or God of the 12 tribes of Israel. Remember, however, that people only call God their father where fatherhood is a prominent feature of their social organization. This is the patriarchy practices of the Romans now, are we clear? Mm-hmm. Likewise, they only call God a king when the people have a king as a part of their political economy. The 12 tribes which comprise the human family are the Moorish nation. However, the basic reason why some Moors label themselves Jews is in honor of Yaqub Israel, the jewel of the 12 tribes of Israel, the creator of the red man, the white man, the top tribe of Yaqub's creation. All Bible prophecy was handed down by Mordecai and Il, the last high priest, on to his son Yaqub Cushitis, also known as the big-headed scientist. All of the ancient wisdom of the family priestly clan. At this time, the Moabites had tremendous spiritual powers and could have used them to humanize mankind and to control the creation, growth, and development of the material world in harmony with nature. Instead, they expanded their scientific knowledge through the use of black magic and used this knowledge for purely selfish and materialistic enterprises. The corrupt Moabite nation was on its last legs, for its people had even gone so far as to alter the beautiful weather conditions around the world. So what you see today is not new. That knowledge was passed down and preserved in the secret societies. Are we clear? So when you look at the things that the Europeans are doing, understand that your forefathers did them first. Are we clear? So this has much to do with the Europeans' trepidation and mistrust of you finding yourselves, particularly their fear possibility of revenge. Are we clear? Today, as a result of the sin, this blatant abuse of power for the majority of mankind, the divine eye or spiritual vision no longer functions. So this is why you see the eye of Horus or the eye of Allah, the eye of Jove symbolic on your great pyramid of the Pyramid University of ancient Central Mexim, i.e. Old Mexim, referred to as Old Mech, Central Order of the ancient Moabite nation. Rulers of the planet. Are we clear? I.e. Great Masonic Secret. Are we clear? Clear. So their adaptation And projection of the use of it is not because it's theirs, it's actually yours. Are we clear? But it is key to the power of running this planet. Are we clear? Projection. So today, as a result of the sin, this blatant abuse of power for the majority of mankind, the divine eye or spiritual vision no longer functions. This is again why you have to clean up morally. Are we clear? To activate.
Yes.
Are we clear?
Clear.
This is also why in multiple levels of society, women are oppressed. Because they could reach that degree first, because they are by nature governors. Are we clear?
Right.
Starting with the womb. That's why they don't want women to learn how to use the womb. All right? That's why you don't have any women in the high priesthood. They don't want you to learn any of the secrets of yourself. Are we clear? And this is why symbolically even the popes of Rome have a great Moabitess down in their deep chambers. And for the dumb masses, they'll call her the Black Madonna. That's a symbolic of the ancient Moabite nation. Because they still their mother. They're hybrid. This is what Charles Darwin talk about. Are we clear? But the spiritual vision, but it has left a witness to his existence in the pineal gland. This is why they don't want you really activating the glands or really understanding that the Christ degree is the activation of the glands. It's not a person, it's a degree. Are we clear? And this is where you see in the Septuaginta, where Yeshua says, as I am, all men shall be. What I've done, all men can do, and some of you will do greater works than I have done. That means you will activate more of the glandular systems of the crown of the sun, i.e. the pineal gland. Once that's activated, game up. That's what everybody's trying to keep you shut down. Are we clear? So, but it has left a witness to its existence in the pineal gland. And when this spiritual element in man reigns supreme over the intellectual and physic elements, the third eye, the pineal gland, that's the third eye, is your pineal gland, was an active organ in that stage of evolution. During human life, the greatest implement to spiritual development and especially to the acquirement of yoga powers is the activity of our physiological senses. When the divine powers and attributes of the godlike man of the Moabite nation had been made the servants of the newly awakened physiological and psychic passions of the physical man, then the third eye pineal gland lost its power and vision. The sin was not in using the newly developed creative powers, but in abusing them. Are we clear? There can be no physical inequity, as the body is simply the organ of the spiritual man. And in the case of the Moabites, it was precisely the spiritual being which sinned. Are we clear? Scroll up. There's the Yucatan. So the Gulf of Mexico and much of the activity of the politics that you see taking place today is targeted right in this area. From Mexico to the northern part of southwest of Mexico, which would include Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, etc. So the politics that you see today is them trying to reverse the movement of the decolonization operations that are taking place all over the world. Are we clear? And the battles that you see taking place with Trump and the Democrat Party is really symbolic. Well, it's not symbolic because it's actual. Having to do with the development moved out the way. And this is what that battle is all about. Are we clear? So that wall thing, is a front for a lot of other things. Wall already exists. They just simply talk about patching it. And blocking it is really because it has to do with other things that are taking place with the oligarchs amongst themselves fighting for power. Are we clear? Including them harvesting babies. This is why in New York, they just passed that rule to kill more babies under the guise of abortion. This is because they need more blood, and they need more blood sacrifices. Are we clear? And then plus the carcasses go right to the burger joints. And people buy burgers for 2 for $3 and 2 for $4. That's why they're so cheap. And so what that does, by eating their own babies, and by them making cannibals out of people thinking that they're eating beef, they're actually shutting down the pineal gland. Give her a mic. Excuse me just a minute, I'm going to where's my news.
Just a comment, I was just thinking when he said that about the eating of their own babies, the babies, it made me think about that old commercial where that lady goes, "Where's the beef?" So, they may have been telling us then that there was something else in there other than what we thought was in there. Now when you go back and rethink a lot of advertising and things that we thought were cute and quirky and so forth, we know that in order to absolve themselves of guilt, that they reveal what they're doing, but they don't, as he said, Taj already said, they never have to say how or that exactly that's what's being done. That we are washing our hands and coming clean. They don't tell you that. They can go back and tell you later on, well, didn't you see that commercial, "Where's the beef?" Or didn't you see that movie, such and such, we were telling you in that movie, we were telling you in that commercial, we were telling you in that song. So many things that we have been brainwashed and blinded to and oblivious to. I believe that, and I spoke about this yesterday, the energy of the times, as Grand Sheik just said, just are demanding us to wake up and to smell the roses, the coffee, and the shit. We gotta, see it for what it is and deal with it accordingly. It's my idea.
No. Now, I want to remind you all again, part of this information has been, go ahead.
No, what you looking at?
Yeah. Part of this information has been shared with you, with those who generally it wasn't exposed to by order of the Great Seal, and through the Round Table, etc. And then you understand some of the conflict or the schism that exists in the Moorish movement, where people with added degrees have kind of what you would say betrayed the Prophet Nudrali and then developed the people and start taking them to the higher planes of life or the higher planes of understanding, which was shared with them, and they were charged to help raise the people. And so a lot of the schism that you see in the Moorish movement, that has its origin right here, where they really don't want you to know the real history so they can control you. With Rome. In other words, even though Rome's ruling, Rome is giving them what you call the few pieces of silver type thing, or a few slugs. This is symbolized factually by their 501c3 that Lyndon Baines Johnson set up for them, for the Negro marching clergy leader guys, pumping the 14th Amendment, civil rights stuff, appears to be working for the people's interests when it actually enslaves them. But because they say Jesus and God and stuff, people trust them. You get the whole point. This is how this thing operates. It's interesting because intelligence and logic says that a people, a being, cannot do the same thing over and over again looking for successes or progress in an area and keep running into failure and keep running into destruction and not come to realize that their operations or what they're doing or accepting or believing is destructive or a sign of insanity. Where somebody continues the same thing over and over again looking for a different result, a more positive result. And this has much to do, in fact, with the mental state of our people in their economic dilemma at North America, dealing with the Europeans and not recognizing that they're under colonial operations, even though the history there, the documents are there, and they're looking at colors when they should be looking at hegemony. In other words, it's called projection. Projecting them to arguments that are of no value and no worth, and so our people are unnecessarily poor, unnecessarily homeless, unnecessarily stressed, unnecessarily sick, all because they don't know themselves. And all because the European projection has been what has been operating in their minds. And also the negative in themselves for not honoring their mothers and fathers in relationship to the reality of what got us to where we are. Also accepting responsibility for our violations, are we clear? This is again why some people who really don't understand the real history get confused when they hear one of the phrases made by the illustrious prophet Nodrali. He says, when you all get back in power, treat the European nice. And it seems contradictory to what their experiences are, is because they don't know their own history and they don't know that this has been a karmic response. A karmic response of reciprocity. You see? And so the Constantinian order, even though they are corrupt, is not saying that they're not corrupt and not saying that they're not doing evil things, but you need to know that we were not innocent in our fall. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And so we must, and even though the Romans, as a general rule, treat us better or more worse than we treated them, nevertheless, it must be understood that that is the background, are we clear? And that you're given this knowledge to give you a foundation of understanding of the current politics, because the current politics is absolutely tied into this. And again, even though some of you have this knowledge, it's sort of like to remind you so that you can stay stable in your own mind. You know what I mean? And also that you're not tempted to anger in some areas, and that anger is used as a fuel to build better character and to do good and to do well. And to do good and to do well, not because you're looking for a reward, but because it's correct. Because the divine ethical principle of moral treatment of humans and of man and of mankind, which is the hybrid, is still your responsibility to do. However, you must dismantle the projection operations of Rome, while in some areas some are forgiven. But also in some areas they have gone so dark that they must be disappeared from the planet for the sake of the planet. But never let that make you what you call mean-spirited. It's sort of like the necessity of reluctantly killing roaches because they're in your baby's food. If you get the point. Go ahead, sis.
Islam Grand Sheik. Could you elaborate more? You touched on in a statement that we are not innocent in our fall. Morris would take that to mean that they do not have a responsibility to learn who they are. So could you elaborate?
And I can understand that, because you look at a lot of them in their heart, and even when, information is given to them in such a manner that they can't deny their bloodline and their pedigree, they'll say, well, what good does that do me? That type of thing. And it's sort of like not understanding that the nature of life itself, and this is why it's important for people to know, because there's what we'll call hermetic laws, or things that relate to the very nature of existence that has nothing to do with what you call ens legis operations or legislation made by man for governing himself, even though he may use it by the measure of nature's law, which is really zodiac principle, or the studies of nature. that there are certain fundamental rules that are knowable and studyable that you cannot violate. And then when you are in violation, you can't devise methods of protecting yourself from Mother Nature. Meaning that there are rules in the universe that operate that are beyond the legislative powers of the gods, as you might say, that all things in the universe are subject to. And by that nature of operations, so does the life of the planetary operations of the universe prolong, preserve, and maintain itself. So therefore, as an example, when beings, and particularly with the spirits in the human form, as an example as a species, their operations have been in a lot of areas, even though they're marked, if you get and somewhat programmed, there's a certain amount of what is called free will with them. Are we clear? And so within that area of free will, many have taken the position of do what thou wilt. Like Crowley and others, we're mastering the powers of man and then using it for selfish gain, but there's a response to nature. And nature herself, systematically, and it actually even works like the seasons. So when you're talking about the greater clock or the cycle ages, and this is why it's also important to understand the ancient culture and the cycle measurement of the chronology, because we get locked up in the mentality of the calendars of Hikupta, or that we call the Egyptian calendar, that was adjusted by Gregory, etc., dealing with the epigee and apogee, of the moon, etc., and they deal with the leap year type stuff. That's still not Gregory's calendar, that's still Egyptian calendar. You get the whole point. And then you have your moon calendars and your Venus calendars of ancient Yucatan, of the ancient Moabite nation. And so our clock systems that for the common people use, they're simply using in their operational thought and cultural pattern, at least for the common people, not necessarily all rulers, is the sun cycle and the moon cycle conjoined. So you got the sun-moon calendars that make up the calendars that are used by the masses. But on this project that, but they themselves don't operate on that. They operate on the ephemerides. Always with the absolute charting of the transits of the sun. And the sun being the major body of operations in this particular solar system. And so, and while that be true, dealing with the 12 rotational cycles of the Earth and the 13 rotational cycles of the moon dancing around the Earth as the Earth cycles and spirals behind the sun, so they measure by that cycle. And so there's this tendency, by not knowing the ancient culture, of limiting our measurement within that paradigm. However, the key to rulership is to know that the paradigm is what is called on the circle of life, or your greater dimensional circles. Are we clear? And this is where they can use the calculations and the geometry of the more immediate affected planets, like say for instance, it is not without knowledge of all rulers that when you're dealing with the operations of the womb, of the feminine energy in the physical realm, that you're not just dealing with the moon, you're dealing with the moon and Venus. And so when you're dealing with the operational planning for human society, those things are taken in consideration. However, the common people keep looking at the 12 months calendar, and their mind is guided by that. Are we clear? And so those who rule, who are more harmonic with what you call solar cycles, or what you call sidereal time. Are we clear? Therefore, their calculations, their presentments their operations and their planning would logically be more in harmony with nature's law and nature's God. And because they're in harmony with nature, that gives them the access to the energies and the power, of the universe, i.e. or Godship. Now, and this is again where and why people in positions of power must be a Mason. Now, keep in mind the fez is corona sol, or crown of the sun. And those of you who have a fez, if you pay attention to that fez, or just as an interim of information, since I threw that in, if you notice on the top of your fez, how many of you got fez in here? All right, if you notice on the top of your fez, let's do your 360-degree circle, right? Right? Now I'm going to remove this cube, and I'm going to demonstrate a little bit more so that you can have a kind of an understanding how things are in your face a little bit, if you get the point. Now, for those who know, this is the glyph in architecture, geometry, and in metaphysical studies, that is the earth glyph, right? That's also referred to as the mundane cross, all right? Now, when you're dealing with what you call your cycle times that the average people are generally aware of, or dealing with the moon and the sun cycle, you're dealing with mainly your trinity in all of your corners. Now, I'll emphasize these noble points because that's your holy cross, right? Or your sun cross, where the sun crosses in it's ecliptic, 23.5 degrees at the wobble of the earth, etc., what you call the equator, right? Then you got your north, south, right? Your east and west. Now that's coming from down, but of course when you're coming in, this east and west are reversed. Are we clear? And with your calculations, geometric calculations of the movements of the planets, etc., this is where you get your news. North, east, west, south. That's where the news is. And so the power of the priesthood is understanding the workings of nature, and therefore they deal with the natural news or the events on earth, and then you can project this forward and backwards to do calculations of the energies of the planets in relationship to the projections on the earth. And this is how what is called prophecy. Or like you'll see, like say in the book of Genesis, where you see the three wise men, so that be a trinity of any of your corners. Three wise men follow the stars. They're talking about the calculation of the stars. Are we clear? They're master astrologers, or MAs. And so when you see in Moorish culture where we've been subjugated, so now they have buttons. But in the ancient world, you actually wore jewels that symbolize the activation of the pineal gland, and also the different stones also interplayed with the pineal gland. This is why you'll see in the ancient world where on the turbans the women would wear a jewel right here. And of course, the thalamus that comes from the dark side of the brain terminates just above the nose right here. And that's why sometimes they would even put a jewel on their forehead here. And with the symbolization of the activation of that is called anointing your head with oil. Sometimes they use rare oils and stuff like that, frankincense and myrrh, and just rub the forehead and stuff like that, activating the pineal gland, etc. But anyway, now on the top of your fez, which is called the crown of sun, corona sol means crown of the sun. Right? You will notice that there's 3 sets of perforations in 4 corners. How many of you noticed that? How many perforations are there? Did you ever count them? Did you ever count them? What was on your head, wasn't it? Wasn't it? And all these secret societies, they wear your crown, don't they? And the Eastern Stars in them churches, they wear your crowns and secrets, don't they? And they got a white Bible too. Right? So the Eastern Stars and the Daughters of Isis, they have a white Bible. And then they have a brother from one of the lodges that's always guardian over that particular lodge, even though they're lodges of the women. Now you'll notice that in your first circle, it's actually 9 perforations, right? Count them, y'all. Then you have a second perforations, and that's 12. And then you have third perforations, and that's 18. This is just symbolic, so I'm not trying to count exactly. Then in the center, you got the finial, which is just like a belly button, isn't it? And then you got an umbilical cord coming from it. Then you have the ball of mud called earth. Then you have the degrees of the earth dancing around the sun, which is your tassels, right? Now, even though the 360-degree tassel is available, most of the ones, the feathers that they just sell in the store, unless you make special order, is roughly 160 in that area like that, you know, of the strands, you know, because it's general sale. Most people don't know the science anyway, so that, you know what I mean, just give them feathers. You get the whole point. But I'm just telling you what you got on your head. Then you have the umbilical cord, then you got the ball of mud called earth, then you got the degrees of the earth dancing around the sun. Now, whenever someone ascends in degrees of knowledge anywhere on Earth planet, they symbolize the fez. All right, so you got the fez like this, right? 360 degrees, right? And roughly, now for the daddy's fez, or for the master fez, is 7 inches. Roughly 7 inches, right? And then, of course, you got the perforations, you know, right? Ball of mud, collar, your degrees, right? And so, for the lessers of the world who learn the culture of civilization on earth, then they give them a little kufi with a little indentation on it that indicates the thalamus, pineal activation, right? And then they give you a square. They give you a square of 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, and then it's stitched on the opaque or oblique, right? Now, and then it has a little finial there. Ball of mud called earth. It's called a cat, or it's called a what? A mortar board. A mortar board symbolizes masonry. Mother and son, you see? And so, if you pull this cord up with the oblique stitching, it will turn into a pyramid. You see? So that's a duplication still of the 360 degrees. So that's what you got on your head. And we can go deeper in that, but basically, that's why everybody who rules on the planet in their secret chambers wear your Moorish fez, because they're ruling the planet. Don't belong to them, belong to you. But our people don't want to honor their mothers and fathers, so they're subjugated to Rome. And this is what the secret, the 12 chapters of the secret Franciscan Brotherhood is that rules the earth, or the Bishopric of Rome. So Rome is the substitute. This is why they take the position of vicar, which means substitute. You see? You know, so everything that they do is based on projection. But then you have to understand the history in order to understand part of their motive. Are we clear? Are we clear? However, and in spite of their operations, the very sun that maintains life in this particular solar system seeks to kill that body they're in. So they have a dilemma too, don't they? So they've gained the whole world and losing their soul. You know, and so a lot of their anger with you is also that they've been given the keys to the 8 ball. That's why you see them that the sign of infinity is popular with them. That's the 8 ball, 8 laid sideways. And so they're taking essentially the universe or eternity in a sense and laid it on his head type thing. If you get, in other words, they literally turn the world upside down. Now the deal of it is, the curiosity with the people is, who know some of their ancient history, is how is it that Rome continues to rule them when they know Rome has a weak body? If you get the point, it is the knowledge that is the key to the power. Are we clear? Are we clear? And so this is again why, like you'll see, Roman operatives like John D. Rockefeller, Frederick T. Gates, Bertrand Russell, etc., have projected in all the education systems of the Christian order of Constantine that the people would be educated to be servants alone, and there would be nothing given in your education that would develop anything in real spiritual power in you. And this is again why it's important for them to control the semantics and language. But again, you know, once you understand the motive of their operations and understand that Kyklaos, or what the masses know as Ku Klux Klan, are the grand protectors of the Christian creed of Constantine. You know, so you have the heirs of the estate worshiping Constantine in the name of Jesus, and then wondering why they make no progress. It's called projection. See, so they've used the energy of the fiction of Serapis and Constantine to project the image that they present as Jesus, which is actually Rome, and they've taken the heirs, and the heirs have been worshiping Constantine under the Roman order for generations, and wonder why their families are destroyed, and wonder why all they see is death, destruction, blood, broken families, broken marriages, and everything else. Birth certificate, bank accounts, IRS taking all of their accounts, gentrifying their communities and everything. But because they will not render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, thinking that they're worshiping Jesus, it guarantees Rome's power. And so that is all done by projection. This is why before we opened this up, we came into reminding you of projection. Because if you don't read these texts with the knowledge of projection, you would still misunderstand the text. All right? So everything that Rome does is what you would call imitation, substitute, impersonation, projection. All right? So anyway, so when you see the cap and gown, when people graduate, and this is where you have the ritual where they throw it up in the ethers, that symbolizes ascension. You know, symbolizes ascension. You know, so that's another thing for you. So even those of you who have fez need to know what you got on your head, and need to know why Rome and all your secret societies wear the Moorish fez while pretending that they don't know that these people are Moors, and why those among your own who are sellouts will keep denying it and say, no, you're not Moor, you're black, and put you in under the Christian black codes. That's their oath to Rome, and that's where they get their kickback. This is why a lot of them will fight you tooth and nail when you start exposing this information on clear. However, you know, you don't preoccupy yourself trying to convince them, because most of them really in their hearts already know that they're Moors. But their source of food is Rome. Rome feeds them sandwiches, give them free sandwiches and give them all kind of benefits. And so they're willing to sell their own children out for a job. This is where you get the book of Job in the Bible. Job, long O, short O. It's still a job. You know, and so they really don't fear no God in heaven and creator. They fear Rome. Rome is their God. And so that projection operations must be maintained for Rome to rule. Are we clear? And those who have benefited, those among our people who have benefited from it, want to maintain that Christian doctrine, because they know that the people believe, not know, that it has to do with Jesus, son of Yusuf, Yahshua ben Yusuf, son of God, type thing, who had absolutely nothing to do with it. So it guarantees the destruction of the descendants of Ham and Cush for generations and generations and generations. This is the problem with the so-called black community. They don't know themselves, they don't know the history, so therefore even when they're trying to think correct, they can't fix anything because their concepts are all wrong. Because the information that they got is what? Anthropomorphic. One. Number two, they don't know that Africa, they're standing on it, so they're displaced mentally. Number three, they don't know that the Pyramid University in Mexico is the oldest school in the world. So in order to distract the people, the anthropologists of the world will just say the world's oldest university is in Morocco. They'll tell you that. And then the mind of the people keep going to the kingdom. But they're really talking about the Yucatan. You see? That's called projection. Now, key is the more you know about the ancient history, because what it does, it exposes you to memory, even though you don't currently activate it. And so in due time, what it does, it's not unlike the nature of things where you put water on a dry seed. It has nothing to do with what you think or what you don't think. You put water on a dry seed, even if it's not in soil. If it's in soil where moisture can be contained for a while, it's good, but you can do it in a napkin or anything like that. And if the sun and the moon has access to it, that seed's going to germinate. The sun, the moon, and Venus, you know what I mean? And so you look at the same way when you bring some of the ancient Moabite knowledge to the descendants, no matter how many generations removed, it's actually in their DNA. And so one of the things that those who use projection don't want is you to ever figure that out. Because the concept is what they need to do and want to do is to keep you in the state of mind that you have to go to their schools to activate the pioneer land or to activate the mind. Are we clear? Are we clear?
Clear.
Now, when you understand that, little by little, the things that have been used by the projectionists will themselves fade. And that is also what's referred to in Septuaginta in the Bible as the illusions of the world. And so the illusions of the world is really the illusions that we have with the education system. Are we clear? Now, again, this is again why we're going through this lesson. All right, turn the shadow of the lights down, please, again. Now, so a man's use of a physical body should be such that he could be neither animal nor spirit being, then he must be born human and not angelic. So keep in mind, hue is really essentially in proportion expressive in language of spirit. And man is manifest, are we clear? So spirit manifests, basically what human is. And not angelic. Human is from the Germanic language and it means spirit being. The word man is also from the German and in reference to the animal part of mankind. Hence, tradition shows that higher evolved beings offer themselves as the redeemers of man by endowing them or him, the humans, with human affections and aspirations. Now, the fall of the Moabite nation was the conclusion of a cycle of experiences, just as all things begin, live through and finish cycles of experiences. At the same time, a new cycle of experiences was beginning for different types of beings. And out of the ruins of the old comes the birth of the new. And this is an eternal truth, and it applies to all modes of life, from the simple atom to entire galaxies. As above, so below. So now you understand the metaphysical meaning of Hexaphoros, or what you would call the Star of Suleiman, or what they call the Jewish star. Are we clear? That symbolizes the Kabbalistic or Hermetic rule of law, as above, so below. And so the fundamental rules of the operations of the universe is really part of your Islam science that should be taught you in science, not in dogma. Are we clear? At the time of Yakub's experiments, the Earth's atmosphere was very different. There were planets in the solar system that are no longer visible in this day and age. Having inherited them tremendous occult knowledge and mystical powers from his priestly father, Mordulakanio, Yakub was able to communicate with beings from other planets who were more mystically steeped in magic and science than he was. He even traveled to their planets with them in order to increase his own knowledge. In the 4th chapter of Genesis, references are made to some of these beings from outer space who were called the sons of God. Yakub learned how to experiment with all forms of magic, and it is even stated in volume 2 of The Secret Doctrine by H.P. Blavatsky that the divine kings descended and taught men sciences and arts, for men could no longer live in the first land, Eden. Now, in knowledge of biology, anatomy, organic chemistry, pigmentation, botany, electronics, and the magnetic laws of opposite attraction involving steel and iron elements were some of the sciences that women scientists and Yakub used to create the ruddy-skinned sons through animalistic experimentation, so as to manifest a great human bouquet through a measurable process of global amalgamation with the Asiatic nation. But much more important than the Moabites' knowledge of the physical sciences was their understanding of the occult or hidden forces which were utilized to make manifest the objects of their experiments. Now, once you understand this, you'll understand why the great Hikuptan, or they'll refer to him as the great Egyptian Adak Nobdrali, enters you immediately when you begin to learn of your nationality and birthright. You say you must learn of your higher self and your lower self, because you must know who the enemy is. The enemy is not just always outside of you. You need to understand that, because you must overcome that too. So one of the dynamics of the socialization that we are going through right now, in order for some of the people to survive the dynamics of present time, is to know this history so that Rome don't eliminate you. Because the more you're steeped into the Roman psychology, the more susceptible you are to elimination. Are we clear? Because you have no natural defenses. It's sort of like putting a rabbit in a large cage fence and talk about run because they're shooting at you. You may as well just stand still because you're not going anywhere. And so forth, you must ascend. So the humans are put in a dilemma position, and this is back to earlier, Sister Tamara, when some people say, what good is it going to do me? Mm-hmm. And it's because they've given up, or what they're really admitting to is that they're committed to serve Rome. That's really what they're saying. You need to understand language. And with such persons, you don't argue with them because they've told you who their master is. Mm-hmm. And their master is their God. And so as Rome is dismantled, so must they be, because they be the very ones that will sell your babies out. Mm-hmm. And this is where it talks about, like in the Bible in Septuaginta, where it says 2 will be in the field, 1 will be taken and the other will be left, which means do not get emotionally attached. Just because it's somebody you know or your relative. In other words, because as this transition is taking place, some will have to be disappeared. And it's just simply that, in order for humanity to progress. Are we clear? And it's just the truth. But the deal of it is, it's not some kind of spooky concept that the people have that they've been given by the clergy. You have the actual operations of human evolution. And of course, if they have a knowledge of the ephemerides operations of what you call cycle timekeeping, they'd be more harmonic with nature, and also the dark priesthood would not be able to operate on their mentality so strongly and take the power position, or what is called, like in the book of Thessalonians 1 and 2, where Yahshua says, remember when I was yet with you, I told you they would call themselves gods and sit themselves on the throne claiming to be God. This is what you're dealing with now. So again, it's important to understand the history so that you don't fall into the mysticism of thinking that, you know, when they say God, they're talking about the absolute creator of the universe and all operations. They're not. You have different men and beings that are vying for power over the resources of the earth. Are we clear? And so most of the time when people are in their mind worshiping God, unbeknownst to them, they're actually worshiping Rome, starting with the Pope. And then those who are what you call assigns or agents, or what's referred to as familiars. And from your familiars come your oligarchs that have been actually controlling the Earth's energies. And you have roughly 12 to 13 European families that have taken on the powers of Rome to exercise powers over the resources of the Moorish nation. And that's your world economy. All the governments are fronts, are parasites. Are we clear? None of them in the general serve the people. None. The people are food. Are we clear? Now, in order for humanity to get out from the iron yoke, now when you deal with the energies that was also used in experimentation, now you understand why the European put so much emphasis on what is called the Iron Cross. Yes. You know, so different things that you hear about in culture and in society have an absolute origin in the ancient world. And is preserved by the truth of the history being preserved by a select few in order for them to rule the masses. Are we clear? Now, they themselves promote dogma as religion for control purposes. Are we clear? The key to the dark priesthood is for you not to figure that out, and for those who know not to tell you. And so usually, well, as a standard of operations, actually, those who know and are not necessarily harmonic with Rome, those are the ones they either kill or they'll pay them off. And they'll make them Negro leader guys and march people around, keep them pacified while they're getting raped. Are we clear? And that buys Rome time. Because the real deal of it is, as you evolve, you will recognize that you don't need any of them to rule you, that they've all been parasitic. And then you'll start activating your glandular system yourself, and then nature herself actually starts coming to your aid and tapping you for what you call downloading. All right? And this is, again, they don't want you to know that because if you lose faith in their institutions, that's where their projections are. See, because they have to have power over you, so you have to give them power by accepting their dogma. That's their key. See, their key is not so much that they have absolute power. The real power that they have over people is the knowledge of technology that they suppressed. Not theirs, the technologies of your ancient mothers and fathers. Are clear? And this is where you have expurgatorius, librorum, prohibitorum, and librorum expurgatorius, and the great Constantinian Christian book burnings to put the world into darkness, and you are and have been the target. It's just that simple. You know, straight, cut, and dry, to the point. And so once you understand that, you know, you also understand that he has some motive as to that, because he is really the slave, if you get the point. And so you understand that Kaiklos, or Ku Klux Klan, which is the grand protectors of the Christian creed, what you call KKK, while they set up the Democratic Party to overthrow the Republic under the secret treaty of Verona. And so this is where you see the basis of the argument going on between Trump and the so-called Ku Klux Klan Party, which is the Democratic Party that the people actually think has been working for them, when it's actually been working to destroy them and to destroy the Republic. Now, that's not a defense of trust, because I always say, when you look at the occupiers fighting amongst themselves, Just because one is fighting more on the side of principle does not mean he's fighting for you. He's fighting for spoils that they both stole from you. You get the point? So again, this is another reason why we're sharing this lesson, because people have a tendency, particularly, to keep thinking that the politics that they're experiencing today is operative in a vacuum. It is not. Are we clear?
Clear.
And this includes people that you've trusted that look like you and me, that are in high degrees of the clergy, whether you're talking about Islam, Judaism, or Christianity, and in secret, 9 out of every 10 of them is kissing the hand of the Pope, whether they claim to be Islamic, Judah, or Christianity. Are we clear?
Sure.
Now, the key is, and the operation is that this paradigm of their network that has fingered the world, the octopus of the Niceno-Constantinopolitan operations of their Inquisition hegemony, is being dismantled. Part of some of the operations of Donald Trump's assignment, and contrary to what people may think, some of the assignment of Barack H. Obama before him all have to do with this matter of dismantling the tentacles of the operations of the hegemony of the Inquisition. And so you'll see these things intensifying and intensifying and intensifying. Now, the deal of it is, the people have not had right of access to their own resources, even to their labor. And this is back to our earlier conversation. You know, this is what their tax is. The tax is a tithe. You know, projected by a body of men of oligarchy that in fact are not your government. They're foreign Europeans belonging to the Roman Curia. And all of the corporate, give your brother a mic, and all of the corporate entities operating at North America are members, the heads are members of the Roman Curia, and most of their administrative bodies are cognizant of that fact.
And I could be wrong.
Turn it on.
There? Okay. From my understanding,
Get in the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. From my understanding,
Get in the mic.
taxes are like interest on a principal.
Now,
Nothing.
you're talking about income. Income is interest on the principal.
Not income. I was.
No, I'm saying that because people are hearing you, and that statement is specific.
Okay.
Interest on the principal is called income. That's applied to corporate entities in the privilege of doing business. And that is only and always income. Nothing else is income. So when you understand that, you understand that ordinary wages should not be taxed as income. But it shows you by projection that the average person, due to their miseducation, actually think that their labor is income. This is the projection. This is, again, why they need to know what's really going on. Because, you know, it's sort of like our people can't evolve because we're in the animal form or in the physical form. To be stable if we can't get our economic act together. And so if you're not aware that your labor has been hypothecated by the priest of Rome under the guise of government, you continue to serve Rome to your own demise, paying for your own enslavement, and wondering why you can't get out of this hole no matter how many JOBs you have, no matter how many JOBs your wife got, and your brother and your cousin. Let me give you an example. You know, because the people don't understand projection and they don't understand that they haven't been allowed to have money. As an example, for many of you who are here, maybe like yourself, you might be like the brother here, you might be talking your childhood in the 60s, 70s. Do you understand? Now, if given a chart as an example of value and how private commercial paper works, right? As an example, when I was 19, because I'm speaking from fact, right? My furniture in my house was from Van Skyler in Camden, and that was like top of the line of top of the line. Meaning that's where wealthy people came from all the surrounding areas to buy their furniture. Now, my furniture, a lot of my furniture was from Van Skyler because I worked there, not because I could afford it, but I could afford it to some degree because I worked there. And then also I did body work, auto body work at the time. Now, at 19 and 20, I had a Chrysler Imperial Crown and a Chrysler 300 SJ. Both cars, which today would be expensive, that I can't afford now, moving bigger numbers are clear. Power of fiat. Pictures on my wall, like you see them pictures there. Now, those are imitations, but I had pictures on my wall, small pictures, that at that time cost $300 and $400 a piece, and they had what you call gold inlay. As a matter of fact, when I used to go up and down moving furniture around, even a couple of pictures that I ordered, the guy was sitting there, the gold would come in like books that looked just like matchboxes. And he was sitting at a table in what you call a closed room, and with a paintbrush with adhesive, and you paint the frame, and they take tweezers and lay the gold on the frame, and then take a soft brush like a makeup brush and brush it in. Now, there's no way I can afford that now. Do you understand? But at 19 and 20, that's why I had my house. I had imported lamps from Germany with real German crystal and marble tops. I couldn't afford none of that stuff now, and I thought I was poor. In my mind, none of that stuff I couldn't afford now. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Now, when you look at projection, things that it's called like this. Now, my Imperial was paid for. My 300 wasn't paid for. I owed about 600 notes on that. But my Imperial was paid for, and that was the more expensive car. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Now that Imperial, that Chrysler 300 with the Hemi in it, at auction you can't get that for less than $150,000 now. That's one of the most highest priced cars that you can get in car collection. You get more for that than you get for a Rolls Royce. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Now, the projection is our concepts, the way people's mind has been groomed, is that we're doing better, that we're making more money. No, you're not. It has no value. Now, the deal of it is also the misclassification of the humans under the corporate operations of the conversion of the private United States corporation company registered in Puerto Rico, listing you as their corporate U.S. citizen or stock, is why your labor is taxed as income tax. So, with the knowledge of this history and how you got to where you are, if we can get these people to understand, this is back to the question earlier, Tamara, with many people, what good does it do them? It's sort of like, you can't give them anything, they can stop the bleeding themselves. Because when they declare their nationality, the bonds that are issued against the name of the marriage certificate and birth certificate that's on Water Street in a name that sounds like theirs is the basis on how that they've been claiming your estates, and even how all property, even when you get sick or die, keeps going into probate automatically, and the state simply takes it. This is key to their wealth. So, and remember, it's projection, because they're not Americans. They're hybrid Europeans occupying America. But as long as we keep calling them Americans, and as long as we keep calling them white people, we just giving them the sovereignty. And all they need to do is spiritually exercise it, and they're justified because you're an heir, and you just made a trust statement. This is another reason why, we keep telling people, stop calling themselves black. They're looking at it on a purely etymological basis, not understanding it's political. And it's operative too. It is absolutely operative. You know, and knowing that most of them, because they're spooked up in the name of religion with dogma, will reject what I just said, although it's absolutely provable. So you just keep doing the work and trusting that some mothers with pure hearts will bring some bodies here with more pure intentions, and it's from those youth or from them babies the truth will come. Because the elders are just so damn corrupt, they're pretty much worthy of being ground up anyway. So as the European starts using them for hamburger and stuff, don't cry about it. I mean, you feel bad, you don't want any beings injured, but the earth has to be fixed. You know, and the best way to begin to fix it is tell the true history of the human family, so that we can stop feeling sorry for ourselves, you know, stop playing victim, and so that the European can stop playing God. And most of all, for us to dump the idol God system that we bought into from Rome, thinking it came from our ancient fathers when it has nothing to do with our ancient fathers. All right? So let's cool down. So seeing the errors which resulted in the collapse and ruin of his generation, Yaqub, possessing a tremendous ego, desired to show the ruling Moabite officials that his brilliance could produce better beings. But even though he was refused his heart's desire, he was still given dominion over a group of islands on which he was allowed to study and to conduct experiments. Now, to tell you this history, the Europeans made a movie in French. It's called Isle of Dr. Moreau. And Moreau is French for Moor. And so they're talking about these islands, and then they'll show you human and animalistic experimentation. They're really telling you the real history. The only part they ain't telling you that they're Frankenstein. Because that's what Frankenstein is also symbolically telling you that history too. With a partly twisted purpose in mind to show up the Moabites. So this competition that you see that started in ancient, central, Amexem, Olmec, continued into all your later dynasties, even the Almoravids, Almoravites, etc., and even the fall later of the Alhambra with the battles between the Moorish dynasties and the relinquishing of the Red House to the popes of Rome, etc., and the feudal lords. And this is why they do the celebration of the Mummers Parade at Philadelphia, January the 1st, because that's when the house fell. Are we clear? That's not New Year, that's when the house fell. All right, so that's a very important parade for all European Germanic sons, the German Dutch. Are we clear? Right. So I'm only telling you this, although many of you already know this, and some of you may be in different lodges too, then you've gotten some of these stories in allegorical stories, and some of you who are adepts in different orders know this information anyway. But the general masses don't know this information because it's not exposed to the general masses. So with a partly twisted purpose in mind to show up the Moabites and to humanize the present civilization in order to keep it on the upswing, he labored for 40 years on these islands until his experiments bore fruit. Yaqub then used the mountain and jungle regions of Yucatan, Honduras, Venezuela, Argentina, and Amazon jungle of Brazil as the environments for his first creations. And I'm telling you, that's where they're trying to stop the third war, what they're calling the Third World War. Venezuela, Brazil, Colombia, etc., Mexico. And this has much to do with the wall. And this is why you see the immigrations coming from Guatemala, Honduras, Venezuela, etc., and including the Europeans for the Kabbalistic Order of the Knights of Columbus and the Knights of Malta, trying to steal the oil fields in Venezuela. That's what these threats to Venezuela are right now today. Are we clear? And when you don't know that that past and present are absolutely related, logically your concepts will be wrong. Are we clear? So when you understand the real history, You understand why everybody's upset with Donald Trump, because he didn't come through the order. Although he's a Templar, he didn't come through the order as structured. Are we clear? Now, so they're all his enemies. It's not that they don't agree with things that he says. Doesn't matter what he says. They're going to declare him out to lunch. Are we clear? Because he's dismantling their system. Are we clear? Now, people who don't understand it. Now, keep in mind that, contrary to what most people think, Trump is not acting on his own. He's assigned. Are we clear? So he is sort of like, they'll assign things to him because he's like the signpost. Are we clear? But it's not Trump. He's assigned by certain factions of the military who are responding to the fact that the nations of the earth are no longer wanting to do business with Babylon. Are we clear? And if they don't save the ship, it's going to burn and sink. Are we clear? So some of what Trump is doing is by necessity. Are we clear? And this has to do also with responses to the Manchurian elders that they will call the Chinese elders and others whose gold they've been using for the last 55 years to back their corporation. Are we clear? And this is also why over the last 25 years or so, many of the Khazarians have moved some of their businesses to China in order to create slave labor, because they already softened them up with the opium wars, are we clear, earlier. So now they're waging the opium wars at the north. And this is why in all your poor areas you see this, the heroin and the opium epidemic in North America now all over the place. So these are things that Donald Trump is countering, because that's been the source of them maintaining the Inquisition hegemony, are we clear, and the destabilization. So it's not that so much that Donald Trump is the savior of anything. He's caught in a default situation, are we clear? Are we clear?
Clear.
So some things that he will be doing will be actually in your favor, but take it with a grain of salt. But it'd be better if you yourself get your head together and get clean in your head about what's really going on, because the energy that you literally emit into the atmosphere is actually the power that they don't want you to. You're that energy. So they'll keep your mind on Tesla and things that Tesla did, rather than letting you know that that energy source is actually you. So you'll be thinking about a tower that they made, or some polar that they stuck in the ground. It's you. Are we clear?
Clear.
All right. So Yakub then used the mountain and the jungle regions of Yucatan, Honduras, Venezuela, Argentina, and the Amazon jungle of Brazil as environments for his first creations, and the waters of the Pacific were used in addition to Central and South America. Yakub took the best of the Moabite nation, which represented civilization, intellect, and spirituality, and mated it with the potential best of the upcoming race, which represented cunning, ruthlessness. Now, pay attention to that, ruthlessness and spirituality. And these experiments resulted in the culmination of the fall of the Moabite civilization and the rise of another, which brought ignorance, superstition, human hatred, amalgamation, medical science, human warfare, bloodshed, destruction, starvation, and sorrow. Such is the great price humanity has paid for the human bouquet. This is what they don't want you to figure out now. You understand why Drali say we don't seek to amalgamate with the pale-skinned nations of Europe? Meaning that you don't continue the demise of the human family. Now, the deal of it is that the sun itself is, and this is why people are upset. And this is also not only to control population and to reduce the population, or they're doing what you call the barium oxide and the flues made in Georgia, and the other chemicals to reduce the population. This is why a lot of people got colds. Is because they made a big drop here, all along the East Coast. So most of you got flu, or your family got flu. You know, and it ain't no germ, it's germ warfare. Go ahead, good brother.
Yes, I was just down in Atlanta not too long ago, and they are the first city that is basically giving you a shot to prevent you from getting HIV.
They're giving HIV. They're not preventing, they're giving it.
Just like with the flu, they give you a flu shot.
Let's back up.
Illegally.
What's mean illegally?
Well,
I know what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
But what I'm presenting to you is the very concept that we keep thinking that they have lawful right to do this as government. They're not your government, number one. When they were going into Asia, in the northern part of Asia, to steal the tin and to take control of the opium, etc., that the Franciscan brothers were losing power. That's the French wars in Vietnam, Cambodia, etc. With the experiments that they were doing here under the Sanger operations of eugenics, etc., they created what is called a retrovirus. And their experiments were mainly on animals, and the swine or the pig was one of them. And so they discovered this retrovirus in the pigs, and so they harnessed it and used it in what they call Agent Orange and other defoliants that they poured over Asia to kill the plant life, etc. And the retrovirus that they discovered in the pigs is what is actually the progenitor of what they call the killing or the neutralization of the immune system. It itself is not, in other words, AIDS itself as a virus doesn't exist. As a sickness, it does not exist. It is the result of the retrovirus operations, of the eugenic operations of killing the immune system. That's what AIDS is. AIDS is the results, not the thing. And there's around 65, 66, and of course, then they pushed the promotion of, pork products. And so our people been, this is why when you look in the last 20, 30 years, our women have been fatter than they've ever been. And it's in their foods. And cancers more than they ever had. Cancer wasn't even talked about in our community. When you talk a few generations back, they had pneumonia, that was like the real serious thing.
Right.
Now they got all kinds of sicknesses. You see them in the 30s walking with canes and don't even understand that they're being attacked. But anyway, the point of it is that AIDS doesn't exist in the concept that people think. They think it's a virus that's somewhere. It's not. It's a retrovirus that is used to kill the immune system that they tested on pigs during the Vietnam War operations for genocide. And they introduced it, particularly the retrovirus, in all African countries to reduce the population. And anywhere where they tell you they're giving you a shot to prevent something, they're giving you a shot to promote what they're telling you they're preventing, including other things. Now that's just simply the fact. And so the deal is, we better go back to the state of mind of our ancient mothers and fathers and start activating our memory. And rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Because that's where you're really being pushed to do. Because that is your salvation. Give Brother Mike. Good.
Okay, can you hear me? I don't want to.
I can't.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because remember, when I tell you get on the mic, it's because you're on film.
Okay, not a problem. And I don't want to get too sidetracked and let.
Well, go ahead. It ain't nothing sidetracked, really. Go ahead.
And I came here tonight specifically for some of this particular information that I'm inquiring about now. Protecting yourself. from the, from the
state of mind. What I'm presenting to you is that a lot of our protection, see, because basically you've been laid bare. Meaning that they've taken what you call the physical weapons from the people. They've abrogated the Constitution, and they've targeted our people on top of it. But they want the people's spirit to be broken. They want you to feel that you have no way out and to submit. You get the whole point. What I'm presenting to you, that mentally, with the people being in the spirit right mind, that they themselves become that energy vortex that they think is outside of themselves. That they actually activate what they think is God outside themselves. They activate it because it's really them. And it's in them. Meaning that your salvation is within. And it extends beyond, this projection of what you believe in. Take that kind of stuff and dump it in the nearest trash can, because it really is the evolution to ascend. And most of your power will be projected actually from your mind. So will your defense mechanism. Now the deal of it is our harmonies with nature in moral and ethical relationship to the rules and laws of nature is really your defense. It's sort of like demonstrated where the Romans were lynching Esau, or one you call Jesus. They were lynching, and then they tried to rip his jalabu and divided it amongst each other, and they couldn't rip it. That's what that means. They couldn't rip the garment. They were trying to rip it and share it. And they couldn't rip it. What it really means is that the aura of protection, they can't get in unless you let them in. They don't want you to ever figure that out. See, the deal is the people are in a state of mind that they're subjugated. And this is what gives Rome his greater power. In other words, it's an illusion. And when you start recognizing the Wizard of Oz is a fraud, he has no power in the first place, you stop putting faith in him. When you stop putting faith in him, his fiat dies. When his fiat dies, the system that the fiat is used to control the world dies. This is what's happening today. People are losing faith in the fiat system. And the fiat system is the bulwark of the Inquisition operations. So they'll do all kinds of wars to keep people dealing with what they're calling now, they'll call it the petrodollar. That's what all your wars are about. Now, but let's not look at that instrument itself. Look at this. It is the people's faith in it that they're trying to protect. They don't want you to see that. They want you to look at the dollar, which isn't a dollar, because dollar comes from Yakantala, which is a gold coin. But the Constantinians came here to steal our gold and silver. They didn't come here to give you gold and silver. At what point did you not forget that they're colonists? This is where our problem is. Go ahead.
So with that being said, we know there is no money, correct?
The deal of it is to identify what money is.
Gotcha. Okay.
You see, the deals, people keep saying there is no money. Ask them what money is. And they'll think credit is money. They think Federal Reserve notes are money. They don't even know that note means debt. They don't know that dollar bill is an oxymoron. Dollar comes from Yakantala, which is a gold coin, etc. And it is based on the alchemical metal of the sun of this universe. And then because the economies of the waters and the rhythm of the blood and the heart is governed by the moon and Venus, etc., even when they're doing intrusions into the bodies of what they call operations, they will go look at a moon chart. And this is why they do operations in clusters based on the position of the moon. That's fact. Now, the alchemical metal for the moon is silver. And the alchemical metal for Venus is copper. That's the money. And nothing else is.
Right.
Now, and this is why you got to know what it is in order to know what it's not. And so what has happened is people get caught up in the argument of the Coinage Act and the violation of the Coinage Act and the operations of the coup d'etat of 1860 and the overthrow of the Lincoln administration, which made that the last legitimate presidency of Abraham Lincoln. There's no legitimate presidents after Abraham Lincoln. And so the masses have been trained that they had presidents of the order of the republic. Since then, they have not. Projection, you see. So you have to know what's up in order to know what's up. So they own, their power lives because the people believe in them. When the people stop believing in them, the system dies because it's illusionary. It has no substance whatsoever. And while they have us clinging to the no substance, they've been stealing our gold. And this is all it is. Now, this is even why they dropped them buildings in New York. When Germany came after their gold. You know, people need to really, our concepts about a lot of things have to be straightened up. But how we think has much to do with what's projected into the atmosphere. It is not unlike, sweating. You know, just like you sweat and your body sweat gets rid of certain impurities. That does what the urine doesn't do, but that keeps a balance. All right. Now, the same way that you sweat in the physical form, the way you think in the mental form goes into the osmosis of the atmosphere and affects others around you. That's why negative thought creates negative atmosphere. But the people don't want you to ever get to the understanding that positive thought creates positive atmosphere. When you start rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's, what that means is giving back the dead culture and the dogma that he's given you in the name of religion, which is mind control systems, and stop attributing it to the prophets, with whom it had nothing to do with. They were the murderers of the prophets and still are. And your thought itself changes the atmosphere. That is your defense that you're seeking. What must you do to start securing yourself? You got to stop believing in them. And you got to know, so the way you do it, you got to know the truth. And the truth will make you free. You see, because the truth is the key to the power. Go ahead, and knowledge is power. Go ahead. That's why we're doing this lesson.
Okay, good. Could you speak on, I have 3 terms I want to throw out there, and if you could just maybe speak on debt discharge.
Debt discharge comes from the setup that was set by the Skull and Bones member Franklin Delano Roosevelt when the United States Corporation Company crashed in 25. And so things were set in place even before he was in office. This must be understood. And then he pledged all birth certificates as bottomry instruments, bonds to back the United States Corporation debt. So they created another shell. Are we clear? Now, with that shell, every time that they set up what you call an in legis in law for going in and out of the Sister QV Trust, which was set up, what is called the Global World Trust, or Global Estate Trust, set up by the Popes of Rome after the fall of the Moors. And this is what runs the planet, if you get the whole point. And so, when they access this, they use what is called the Cusick number and the social. That's what the Social Security game was set up for entry and exit on the Sister QV Trust. Now, they must always, to protect themselves from a Kabbalistic point, because remember, all these are dark priests, all of them. So the remedy is that the debt, alleged debt that doesn't really exist on the fiat claim of the Kabbalistic and Khazarian operatives under the Spanish Inquisition operating at North America under the secret treaty of Verona, is to convert their private corporate debt onto the descendants of the Moors. That's the whole game all the time. Are we clear? So the remedy is, I think it is in subsection 95.A, point B, where all the debts of the United States, because they pledged or hypothecated people's properties, their homes, etc., even non-profit organizations, that they must give you remedy. And this is where the voucher system come in, where actually the debts are never paid. They're what is called set off, and I know you heard of that, and discharged. So therefore, they're already so-called paid, but they're against the United States, not against you. Now, this is the remedy, however, they have never honored it. And this is where you have the commercialization of human trafficking. And when people begin to find out about the birth certificate operations that Franklin Delano Roosevelt set up, they start trying to get control of the Sister QV trust system. And this is where the discharge comes in. Understand that you have right to that by law. They just disallow it. But they put it in place to protect themselves karmically. It's only there for karmic protection. Not that it is not lawful. And so that you see, well, when I say lawful, legal. Because it's still all predicated on fraud. But that is the remedy that was set forth in relationship to the people having remedy to them pledging the people's bodies, their labors, their future labor, the hypothecation which we talked about earlier. And that has to do, all that relates to House Joint Resolution 192, 73rd Congress in session June the 5th of 1933. Although the order broke down earlier, and this is why they re-registered the United States Corporation in 1925. The breakdown was actually earlier. So what was happening is that they was covering it up. And this is why when you go into the Delano Roosevelt administration, that a lot of the orders that were set forth with the so-called bank holiday were actually set forth before he was even in office, although his name is mentioned, if you get the point. But again, cutting through the chase, that's where the discharge and set-off has its operative origin.
And you're saying that they don't honor that, pretty much?
No, because it's like this game up. It's sort of like, and this is why we tell, even if we could get the people to, in a word, nationalize in general and have a cognitive consciousness of it, and then claim the estate, they're spot on. But most people find out about this and they still try to claim the estate under their black codes. It's like a dead argument. And they won't honor it. Now, I'm sure, and we mentioned this before, that you've heard in this, I think it was this recent past year, and you won't see too many people entertaining it, but that European daughter who perfected the authentication of the birth certificate, which is the same basic process, trying to get a hold of the Sister QV trust, etc., and via the Social Security birth certificate and the the red number, the cubic numbers on the Social Security that Roosevelt set up, that has to do with discharge and remedy. And of course, she perfected the systems that they presented. She perfected it, and as soon as she perfected it, they tried to disappear her. That's when I say they don't honor. So even with those who really perfected, it's buying time. They're buying time. Everything they do, whether it's site graphs, HMOs, financial statements on 1, 3, and 9, mainly on the commercial codes, uniform commercial codes, are promises of remedy that should be there by legal process, but when people find them out, they usually try to disappear them. So therefore, they don't honor, do they?
Okay.
That means they're thoroughly corrupt. It does. See, it's sort of like dealing you a hand in Atlantic City, and you got a royal flush, and then they accuse you of marking the debt when you win. Right. When you just busted the house. Do you? Right. Do you?
Now,
their debt. Understand? Do you understand?
Now, what do you think about the secured party creditor process?
That's what that's all about.
Okay, right.
Remember, everything, no matter what the process, Whether you're talking secured party, right? Everything and every operation, whether you're doing, 35, 40 years ago when they talk about the HMOs and the site drafts, affidavits to the Transportation Department, then the UCC financial statements. And if you notice that these deal with cycles of time, where thousands of people get involved in these offers, thinking that they're going to get a hold of the Sister QV Trust, becoming executor, or what you call secured party. See, because the secured party is holder in due course. And the holder in due course is the position of the one who has the original working instruments of contract of what you call estates and properties. And also, and whether you're dealing with mortgages and stuff like that, if you're dealing with mortgages, you're talking about the mortgage and the promissory note together, never detached during the whole process of the execution of the so-called loan, etc. To control that is the secured party. Okay. To control the original birth certificate is the secured party. As you already know, and this is where people get caught up in the emotions of the promise of honor, of contract, while at the same time forgetting what they already know if they study contract law. And that is this: in order to be holder in due course, therefore to be secured party, you must have the original instruments. There is no clerk, nowhere, operative in no corporate organization or corporate venue of vital statistics that will give you the original birth certificate or any other original instrument. And in an argument of a state, a certified copy is not sufficient. Therefore, you can never be holder in due course. Therefore, they will never honor it. Why? Because they've been holding it, because that's the basis of the entire operations of the United States Corporation Company that has been projected falsely as a country since 1860. At what point do you think they're going to give you access to break that? I mean, it must be collapsed. But you will not be the one to do it. Not by their hand. However, when you begin to find out these things, they will make offers to you because they can't BS you. This is where all these processes come from. And I'm not saying, as they are presented, that they shouldn't work legally, because they're set up to work legally. They just never honor it when you project it. And then look at this and use your intelligence. How many people can you, not necessarily name, but even you can think of their faces? And you understand these different processes have been around, since the 60s. As people start to wake up a little bit. And so, how many people can you name that have been going through all these processes that can show you that blank check voucher where they only have to sign their name because they have access to the Sister QV Trust? Name one. But you see millions of people attached to it running in circles for years, don't they? Then when that runs out, they'll start another one. Is it not true that the authentication of the birth certificate is no different than the HMOs of 35 years ago? They are not. Different name, different time, different runners in the race. But they will not honor because they're dishonorable. It's the source of their power. So the deal of it is, what we're trying to get people to do, and we're not saying don't do, if you need that exercise, go ahead and have fun. You know what I mean? But your energy will be better spent in making people conscious and declaring their nationality, which kills the bond system. You're never going to get it, so why don't you kill it? Why don't you choke it? See, the deal with they want people to think they're going to get their hands on it. This is why they started the authentication of the birth certificate. Now, if it's built in fraud, doesn't it remain in fraud? All right, so if something is a bottom instrument and it has multiple allonges with it, they're talking about the birth certificate, and half the people that are running after it and the discharging and the set-off related to their estate, they don't even know what allonge is. There's more, seek it. Because if they understood the system, they'd know that all the birth certificates and marriage certificates have allonges on them that essentially are debtor's notes on top of the debtor note, on top of the debtor notes being sold over and over again. Mm-hmm. And to be the holder in due course, you have to have the original instrument with all the allonges. Tell me one person that even discuss allonges. They keep talking about birth certificate. They don't even know what they're dealing with. Do you understand what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that they don't have any intellect in some of the operations. But as long as they keep having faith in the system, that's what gives Rome life. And Rome will continue to do those promises. You know, here's a red apple, bite this. And he's buying time. Everything he's doing is buying time because it's not, they're arguing over spoils that are not their own. When you really understand this, show where any property, any real land in North America is really owned by anyone. Show a deed that really indicates ownership of land. They're all tenants because they can't sell it. Because it's all in trust.
Transfer.
It's all in trust. You see the whole point? So what we're trying to do is get the people cognizant enough and get them at least enough separated from their ego that they can start doing these things because they're right, not because they're looking for a benefit. If they would seek first the kingdom of heaven, all the other things that they sought will be added to them, but they're dirty. There is a metaphysical side to this too, you know, and that's really just true. And I say this: seek to help someone or teach someone that does not know. Seek to give a sandwich to someone in need, and the sandwich will be handed to you. Seek it for yourself, and you don't get it. Not that you won't, but in general, that's how nature works.
Last question.
You know, but that's what discharge is all about, and it's set off. That is the remedy that's written into the legislation.
Right, and that's kind of what I was looking for, information, I guess, you know, on that in a sense. I'm in a situation, and they got my back against the wall.
Yeah.
You know, some taxes, property taxes, and some
Oh,
other stuff.
yeah. All right. Now, first thing, everything that's concerning your property should be in trust. You got to trust.
Yes, after the fact.
After the fact.
Yeah.
However, what's your name?
Santana.
Huh?
Santana.
Put it on the phone. I can't hear you. You
Oh,
talk.
I'm sorry. Santana.
What's your nationality? Already, as soon as you pause, you declare incompetent. It all goes to the state. Now, look at this objectively, what I'm saying to you, because I know you're intelligent, and I kind of feel where you're going with that. What I'm reminding you is this: people start finding out information and keep forgetting they're not holder in due course, and in a dead status they can't be. Period. Doesn't matter how much intelligence you have or how much you know. That's number one. Number two, in order to claim the estate, you got to be of Moorish descent because the land is Morocco. And don't care what you claim. This is where a lot of Europeans who perfect the systems, when they perfect the systems, then the magistrates tell them you can't use that constitution as a defense. You're not a party to it. Why? They agreed to be white people. They were militarily protected under that paradigm, but at the same time, not by the law, only by military operations of Inquisition, of the Circle Church. See, so long as they could keep the institutions in place, they got it going on. When the institutions are dismantled, they don't have it going on. Here is where Trump is a problem with him. Because he's going against the grain, though he's a Templar. You know, so you got to know the history to know what you're looking at. Meanwhile, again, use your intelligence. And I'm not saying don't seek to do some of these things, but I'm just letting you know ahead of time, if it's by their hand, they ain't giving you shit. But they will promise you, because it buys them time. Keep in mind, it buys them time. If it were not for the Manchurian Masons and others who are dumping U.S. Treasury bonds around the world, you would not see Trump doing what he's doing. He's doing what he's doing because he got to. Are we clear? Look more at what Trump's doing and understand that that most was given to the public is rhetoric. If you don't take that serious and look behind the veil, you can understand the politics. But again, I'm not just discouraging, because logically we're all under pressure. Now, I say this. What would your estate response be from your estate to the named men and women who approach you in mail, etc., that represent the Inquisition Revenue Service directly, for them to produce the claim upon which they have upon your estate? And you deal with it from that level, and you start seeing them telling you you don't know it. You start dealing with the processes they telling you, and you're trying to get a hold of Sister Q, ain't gonna happen. You're buying time.
I wasn't trying to go that.
But what you know, I'm saying with all this, what are we trying to do here at the House of Reawakening Minds with the people that are here and people are listening? Is for them to correct their status, but understand what they're doing when they're correcting their status. You hear this phrase thrown around without people really understanding the relationship. This is why we're going into this ancient lesson. Because what's happening then is happening now. Those who were with us 2,000 years ago are with us today. Some of you are your ancient mothers and fathers. If you don't really understand that, then you will be food until you get that understanding. Then nature comes in. She is your defense. Your mother is your defense. Might sound off the wall to you, but it's absolutely true. Get on the mission of rejecting Rome on all points. As you reject Rome on all points, your securities and your immune system will accelerate. Keep your life simple while you're going through this battle. Keep your life simple. You know, anything they offer you, you spend your energy running after it, understand they will never honor it. But what they're doing, they're burning your energy at that time with false wishes. If you can't capture it, not because you can't, and not that you couldn't or shouldn't, is that they won't allow it. Not, are we clear?
Right.
Not that 95 subsection A doesn't state that they should, because it does. They won't honor it. You know, it's like this. We're talking plural, right? All right, now we've figured this out. Hey, that European's not white man. He's a European. Hey, that European's not American. He's European. Hey, he's abusing us because he's an inquisitionist, not because he don't like my skin. Wow, now you're starting to figure this out, and you're not following that race, marching yourself around, wasting your time with fake hopes thinking that you're going to be a citizen of them when you're in their food. Then your mind and your energies are focused on other things. Are we clear? Meaning that you just patched that hole in your gas tank that you thought was an accidental leak that they put in there. So now you're going to go a little further. And then you can clear up because you're eliminating, you haven't stopped it, but you're limited the bleeding. Are we clear? The economic bleeding. As an example, and we could bring a brother here who will, could give you the information directly. He's a Chinese brother, who got the IRS off his back, just like what you're saying, because he understood the history. He understands that we're Moors, and he put a heel on his name too. And all that stuff got dismissed. But you have to be real. You have to understand that. Stop looking for the benefit. Stop the bleeding. Then we can start what? Contributing to our own institutions and building them back up. That's where your security comes from. It's not going to come from them. They're not going to allow it. It doesn't mean that it's not written that it should. They're not going to allow it. But they will promise it to keep, because they need you, plural, to have faith in their systems. Because their systems live because of our blind, not our faith, blind faith. So they're vampires. So there's a metaphysical aspect to the physical operations. And they operate on that. The deal of it is, and this is why we're going through these lessons, so that people can understand It's sort of like know your enemy. Understand how they're thinking. Don't get caught up in the party line or the cure that they told you that you have. He's your enemy. He's not going to give you, he ain't going to give you the key. He'll promise you a key. He ain't giving it to you. Let's look at it this way. How many 33 and 32 degree Masons been marching around over these decades in the name of civil rights, knowing that our people are refugees in their own land, and yet they've been taken to the mountaintop, and they BS around, pacifying our people, and then when the European has no more use for them, he kills them too. So what do you think he's going to do for you? You know, the sooner we understand these principles, the sooner we understand that the Europeans operating with a clear mind. Anyway, we're more than overtime. Go ahead, Dr. Ayel.
Islam, as we close, I just wanted to bring to your attention a couple of situations when you talk about how we are perceived by the de facto government and so forth. I was hoping that Sister Elwood did hear from New York, but because of the weather, I'm sure she wasn't able to make it. But on a mere speeding ticket, she's been dealing with, I don't know, since last year, maybe almost a year, and stopped in the New York territory. And the so-called, the judge has admitted that he's a
The administrative clerk.
He's the administrative
Now, this is where we got to start calling them who they are.
Says in his words, he's an attorney 4 days a week and a judge on Wednesday.
And you're right.
Right, and so in her case, they're trying to railroad her. So she watched the person in front of her, European being going before him, saying on a DUI, and he sent this woman off with, if you got to drink, if you're going to drink over the week, and make sure you have somebody driving with you, see you in court. With her, they're trying to throw the book at her. Then
because she is the estate.
Well, then she goes back and Wednesday for a so-called pre-conference because she asked for a trial. And the same, what is he called? Administrative clerk?
Administrative clerk.
Okay. Now he says to her, he doesn't like that she has her, she's got her turban on, some other things. He said, so he asked for her phone number. She said, I'll give you my number, but since we're exchanging numbers, can I have your, what is it, I'm just having brain lapse.
Bond number?
The bond number. He told her that if you start, first of all, I'm not giving you my bond number, but she said, well, I can get it. He said, well, if you start with that, basically I'm going to destroy you in this town.
Yeah.
He tells the guy who in front of her who was on having a sex with a minor, gives him a $250 fine and a no contact order, and then tells her that she's going to come back in 2 weeks, and that if she loses the trial, she's facing maybe 6 months for a speeding ticket.
Yeah.
So then we have another sister who's
Now,
been
but now hold on.
I just want to give you both of them.
Yeah, who is she? What's her name?
I don't want to put her out there.
Well, you don't have to have
She's
her
an
name.
L.
Then she's
on the square.
now. All right, now she has standing. That's the point. She has standing. Apparently, protocols are not in place.
Well, she's trying to, navigate,
Yeah.
and she said in her area, this is just her. So every time she
Well, it
goes
doesn't matter
there,
where you are. See, this is the whole
well,
thing.
every time she goes there, they feel like it's just like her against them. And this she said he is so
It's not a
belligerent.
yes and no.
But he's so belligerent. Well, disrespectful. Totally.
I already know. This is where Ricks come in. The beam would have been sufficient. And it's sort of like they're expecting also, since we claim to be conscious, to really act like we know.
Mm-hmm.
And what you have is that we keep claiming consciousness, and our demonstrations indicate that we're not. Let's put it this way. Drawley said, I want active Moors, not passive Moors. It's not disparaging against anyone. The reason he's saying that, because if you're not going to activate this information or understanding, you may as well go back to the state where he found you. And we cannot keep making this excuse about we're here by ourselves. You're never here by yourselves.
Thank you.
the principle is with you.
Well, in her defense, in her defense,
Yeah, I'm not
she's working on her writ. She wants to write her own writ. So she wants, no, she doesn't want anybody to write her writ.
And I appreciate that. And
Right.
she will dance around, and I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. She's going to dance around, they're going to keep playing with her and threaten her, and then he's going to dismiss it. Well, he's putting her through the screws.
Well, we have another sister who nationalized, came here nationalized, been over a year. She had a traffic violation in Lincoln, Florida, if I get it right. And she moved to Virginia. They arrested her for something else in Virginia and extradited to Florida, dismissed the charge. They extradited her back to Florida on a dismissed charge. She's been held for over a year. And one of our brothers has been trying to work, Brother Isaiah working with her family. But one of the things, and I'm not getting it right completely, but he got communication back from the court because they were trying to move it, have it moved out of that venue. And they basically said to him, you stay out of it, and they gave him a title, she's black. Well, they literally said in the communication, she's black. Well, in other words, she's, but she's nationalized.
But there has to be status. See, and listen, I'm not condemning. I'm looking at this like it is. If you make the claim and don't live the claim, you're black. A lot of people, when you really study, and you've experienced this, a lot of people that's come into this information over these years have come in after the shit has hit the fan.
True.
Not on the honor, on principle. Many people come to this movement, it is their right now, because they've lost all other remedy, and they know in their heart that this platform is correct. And so they jump on it and expect things like the law will just be living. You got to be it. The same energy that we put into studying the Bible, the Quran, all of the books, and be claiming about the ancient men and women of the world, you're supposed to know about your bloodline presently. Are we clear? Now, when you're looking at the operations of the municipal operators on North America, right? If you're conscious, you know about the Secret Treaty of Verona, right? You also know there are no Article 3 courts, right? You also know that the Sheiks and the Grand Sheiks of the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, the Old Canaanite Temple, were put in power to make law and to enforce law. You know that they were put in power, and all of the persons who were nationalized by obligation and duty to self and to their fellow man to enforce that Constitution. 9 times out of 10, they're arguing everything but that, including the fundamental protocols that go with it. And when that protocol is not demonstrated, the magistrate, or because he's an attorney, which you already know, Amendment 13, with its original section, that an attorney cannot hold office in the United States, specifically not that. So don't call him a magistrate, don't call him a judge. As soon as you did, he has right to that position. So you don't make no mistake. He is an administrative clerk of the corporation. And the deal of it is from the door, you should be going after his bond, not threatening him that you're going after the bond.
Do
it. Exactly. And instead of keep on supporting these churches and clubs and mosques and stuff, they should be having civic organizations and entertaining their divine right of humans under international law, enforcing that Constitution. But we won't do that. And then when the shit hits the fan, everybody wants to rescue, oh, now they're Moorish American. I'm not saying that that's not the case. I'm saying too often it is. Now, the one who's playing chess with you already know when you're in the culture. Why? Because he's the one that conquered you. The concept that a lot of people have that these Europeans don't understand this is wrong. We're the ones that's been out to lunch. We keep assuming we got to convince him. We don't got to convince him. You got to convince yourself and your mothers, brothers, and sisters who keep thinking that they're black, living under the black code, but they want the benefit of nationality. Guess what? They don't go together.
And they still calling us sovereign citizens, and that has
which is a contradiction. Now that's a rebuttal.
Right.
You can't be a citizen of the USC. It's a contradiction. They're doing that for people who fall for it to argue it. You don't argue it. That's a slander. You're not the U.S. citizen. You're not stock. You're a national. You don't be supposedly a national. You be one. You act like one. You live it. You be it. And logically, your protocols and your attitude will adjust accordingly. It will become your natural language. And though you know the connotative linguistics around you, you will always be correcting it. Not being arrogant, but because it needs to be corrected. Isn't that why we're doing what we do here at the House of Reawakening Minds? Anyway, we're over time. And I want to thank you all for coming out to the House of Reawakening Minds. Hope we did some good. And even though we didn't get even to the parts that we want to talk about, Hammurabi Bey's Code of Law. Hammurabi's law is still operating today. And it is the world's most complete law system still in existence. All clear. Now, with those children of Israel, that the Moabite and Moorish nation, so-called enslaved, is what their attitude towards you is right now, aside from other things. And that's what the Kairos Ku Klux Klan is about. To keep you from rising, all clear. So, but they have to keep you, collectively, having faith in the system. Because when your faith dies, their system dies. But they don't want you to know that they got a straw in your neck. It's abstract. See, because when you stop believing in them, you pull the straw out. The vampire dies. But what do people keep doing? They keep on looking for a benefit. Are we clear? We're going to talk in the future about contracts and about dealing with the IRS. Plus, if the IRS survives this year, it'll be their luck. No, they will be dismantled. You know, and it ain't because the people are doing what they're supposed to do. It's because others have been doing it because we've been lax. And the rest of the world's being damaged, and they ain't having it. And even though there's a heavy price to pay along the way, they're doing what these Moorish Americans should have been doing since 1913 and have been negligent. Now that's the fact. However, the more of you that are energy active, the more you can aid the world, because the assignment's on your back anyway. That's your assignment whether you like it or not. Now that's the truth. Islam. All right. So thank you again for coming out to the House of Reawakening Minds. For those of you who are listening, remember the house, remember Dr. Naila, and remember also for those of you, keep check with her, because you know you'll be traveling with her or riding with her with Dr. G, and every once in a while when she's on the road, you know, when she has her epiphanies, you know, she'll be speaking off the cap. But 9 times out of 10, guess what? She'd be digging into that ancient DNA memory, and she'd be plunging, and how you say, baptizing people as she rides. So anyway, you all have a grand evening. Thank you for coming out.
Islam, we want to thank you for coming out to the House of Reawakening Minds, and thank our Grand Sheik. We want to let you know some of our upcoming events. Next Friday, we will have our brother Abdullah Bey. Please make sure that you come, if you can attend or tune in. We thank you for the great audience that we had today. And we also, Grand Sheik will be back on February 15th. So if you couldn't make it tonight, and even though those of you who braved the snow and so forth, we are so happy. And 100 and some plus online, we are appreciative of you. We also want to thank, we have our new theme song that actually was written for us a few years ago, and we're finally using it. My goddaughter, Maisha Brown, we want to thank her for writing and performing this song. Thank you, and we also thank you for your support. Those of you, we got your support during the broadcast, and you can continue to send your support even after we go off the air.
I'm real. story away.